If you've spent a lot of time on this platform, you've probably heard of Max Striker, better known as Mama Max. From his collabs with massive creators to his far-reaching social media campaigns, he's a well-established name in the YouTube ecosystem. For the better part of a decade, he's poised himself as a predator hunter, with his channel amassing over 700,000 subscribers. Until recently, Max was seen as a bright light by fans and peers alike, exposing some of the most depraved individuals on the web. This facade and his unearned credibility went largely unquestioned until late 2023. The sheer incompetence on display led to a complete upheaval of his entire persona, with his entire career put under scrutiny. The result was an unsettling discovery that this wasn't a one-time occurrence, but a long pattern of behavior, revealing Max to be manipulative, dishonest, exploitative, self-serving, and worst of all, outright malicious. This is the story of Mama Max Striker, the internet's worst predator hunter.
Something that thinks it's profound, but it's actually very dull.
Sorry to my audience who don't even know what the heck is going on. We'll see you, probably never again.
While Max is known nowadays as a creep hunter, he originally began in a completely different niche. Max was initially aligned with the commentary community, uploading to a channel he created in 2010 named Sexy Pants. He was inspired by the success of people like Leafy is Here and H3H3 Productions, who made it look easy.
The people that inspired me to make my channel, I kind of hate having to bring this up because it's people that I currently don't like anymore. Like people like Leafy were like the ones that made me get on my channel because I saw how fast he was growing from doing something so simple, like he's just talking. And I was like, oh, right, that's pretty cool. I want to do that. And, you know, like others like Pyrocynical and Grade A Under A, H3H3, even Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, like kind of inspired me.
In late 2015, Max began a series called YouTube Hell, which brought his earliest success on the platform. These were comedic, often nonsensical edits about other drama channels. While no re-uploads exist, a mere look at his banner at the time gives a taste of his sense of humor. I mean, really, it's his face next to Filthy Frank, Leafy, and good old Adolf. They were basically YouTube poops about specific creators, with a bunch of ties placed in for good measure. His most successful had names like Pyrocynical in the title, which got him noticed by others in the sphere. By early 2016, Max had nearly 7,000 subscribers and seemed like a promising up-and-comer. He started doing personality-driven content, garnering a small but loyal following. It was his viewers that came up with the nickname Mama Max as a reference to Filthy Frank. They were dedicated enough to advertise his channel for free, spamming his name across comment sections. This is unfortunately when Max hit his first roadblock on the platform. His use of hentai clips was quite risky due to YouTube's terms of service, and it wasn't long before videos started to get taken down. After receiving multiple notices, Max discontinued the series and ultimately decided to switch channels.
I'm Max.
The Mama Max channel was created on May 23, 2016. It would be home to a new series called Life Sucks, in which Max narrated over animations drawn by his sister. Max's content was evolving, motivated by a desire to learn the art of filmmaking. This was a means to that end at a time when he was unable to afford a camera. They were an outlet for Max to vent his frustrations at the world in all of their misanthropic glory. Max would rant about subjects like money, jobs, friends, loneliness, and even terrorism. They even contained personal stories that gave a glimpse into his real life and past. He'd vent about how awful his family was and his experience with heartbreak.
Let me tell you a story. Max was going through a sudden breakup with an Australian girl he was with for 2 years after she found someone else. She went by Twigs or something. Every day, depression would rip his brain and everything seemed so pointless.
His emo diatribes were often bookended with attempts at inspirational monologues.
But you better not let anything stop you. Especially not these fucking whores and sluts who betray you. Do not let them stop you. They chose you because you are good. And now that they've left you, it's time for you to transition from good to great. From great to greater. From greater to greatest. You will be the greatest.
Now, in retrospect, many dismiss these videos as incel story times. They're not wrong, like, at all, but Max's approach, in which he spoke about these issues unfiltered, resonated with people. It was effective in creating deep, long-lasting parasocial relationships. Max's appeal was that he was an outcast, and willing to expose himself in ways no normal person would. His stated goal was actually to help others who were suffering with depression, getting praise from both viewers and other creators. He appeared on podcasts, started his own podcast, and later installments had guests like Elvis the Alien and Corpse Husband.
I can do something that I don't really like talking about.
Oh God! Oh, I'm ready for this.
I can suck my own dick.
By late 2016, he amassed 10,000 subscribers and only grew exponentially from there. He passed the 100K milestone in April of 2017, celebrating with a video of his friends and collaborators roasting him. This growth continued throughout 2018, reaching 200,000 subs by the end of the year. This is around when the series ran dry, with the last episode uploaded that March. Max's channel began underperforming, and he had to get another job. He grew embarrassed of the series and would end up privating all but his last installment.
I've not abandoned you, and the content is not gone. It's just on hiatus. I had to get another job, so I don't have enough time to make them anymore. Also, they started to get boring to make because I felt like I was uploading the same thing every week, and I felt like they all sucked to where when I look back at them I cringe, and also of course because they weren't doing so well.
This is when Max made a bizarre pivot that was also a return to form. Hentai reviews.
And then, you know, my channel started dying and I started getting depressed making that kind of content. So I was like, let's fucking do a 180 and make hentai reviews.
Max began making hentai reviews for his own amusement, with much of the humor coming from the sheer absurdity of it all. Many of these amount to reaction videos with some creative editing here and there. There isn't very much to say about these other than that he was once again skirting the lines of the platform.
Today, we're going to be watching Cherry and Gals. It is an anime that is about a sister who rapes her prepubescent brother with her friend.
That is, except for the last and only hentai review that remains public to this day. The video begins with Max getting tissues and a lotion while reading a poem that he had written himself about spanking the monkey.
I want to touch and feel. I want to know it's f***ing real. To actually have control of the wheel. I don't want to just sit and watch as I rub and grip my crotch.
This is before devolving into a style more familiar with fans of his later content. Max's channel was about to evolve, with this video serving as a transition to video game content. Even though he enjoyed making hentai reviews, it wasn't as fulfilling as the content he made to help people.
I'm hoping to make this a series where I make documentaries about the impact of video games on people's lives. So if you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you have a game that pretty much saved your life and you have a story that you want to tell, just send me an email.
It was a sign of what was to come, with Max creating videos about Halo, Dead Space, and the Elder Scrolls. They contained a lot of original footage, as Max experimented more and more using voice filters on his narration. It had marginal success, with only one managing to crack 100,000 views. But they set the stage for the video that single-handedly put him back on the map, and began an entirely new phase of the Mama Max channel. Kanye Quest 3030 is a satirical indie RPG released in 2013. The game made headlines upon release, receiving coverage in outlets like Vice and Rolling Stone. It had mysterious origins, with the developer only known as Phoenix, but this fact was largely overlooked until 2 years later. In 2015, a user discovered a previously hidden section of the game. It claimed the rest of the game was a front, and its actual purpose was to spread the teachings of the Ascensionism cult. Those who investigated further found a complex puzzle of hidden websites and QR codes. The ending congratulated players on their ascension before asking for their private information. With the benefit of hindsight, we know for a fact this was an ARG. The creator was identified in 2022 as Clara Hope, who created Kanye Quest for a high school project. But at the time, this was unclear, with the discovery making big waves in the gaming community. On August 1st, 2019, Max uploaded a 30-minute video about Kanye Quest. He investigates the urban legend at length, concluding it to be the work of an underappreciated artist.
Left behind by an underappreciated artist. A faceless, yet extremely intelligent human being who spent 6 long years crafting this extraordinary story with its mystifying puzzles and games. But I do know that I can empathize with being an underappreciated artist. It is one of the most heartbreaking and soul-crushing occupations because of it.
The video exploded in popularity, amassing over 2 million views. It quickly became the most viewed on his channel, solidifying the future direction of his content. He made 2 more videos before the end of the year covering similar stories. The first was about Sad Satan, which infamously had illegal content hidden within its files. That video received 2.2 million views. The second was the story of Kamakui Shiki Village, a game with alleged ties to another cult. This cult is most well known for perpetrating the deadly Tokyo subway sarin attack in 1995. They're active to this day under the name Aleph, but are largely defunct as a terrorist organization. This became a contention in Max's next video titled Rolypoly.exe. The video centers around the 1997 Japanese educational game Roly Polies. It was created by artist Osamu Sato, most well known for creating LSD Dream Emulator. The game was considered lost media until 2019 when it resurfaced online. Max starts his own video by claiming that a mother had sent Roly Polies to him after it killed her son.
Last month, someone sent me a game that she says killed her child. A mother of a 5-year-old boy downloaded a toddler's edutainment game in the hopes that it would keep him busy while she was cooking dinner. He died the next day from an intracerebral brain hemorrhage. Today, I'm going to apparently risk my life for you and play this game.
Unlike the previous subjects he covered, Roly Polies is exactly as it seems, a family-friendly game designed to help kids learn English. The rumor had never circulated before, which Max acknowledges in his video. He determines the supposed mother to be fake, noting it came from a throwaway email. But then, he discusses another suspicious account which contacted him on Discord. They claimed to be a fan before asking for his home address. Through a convoluted series of events, he traces all of their IPs and links them to the exact same prefecture in Japan. Max then uses this to claim that the same deadly Japanese cult is targeting him specifically.
I figured this would happen. If you didn't see my last video, I covered a video game tied to a Japanese doomsday cult that is currently identified as a terrorist organization with still active members, known as Aleph. In the video, I specifically mentioned that this cult may now be targeting me, and from what it looks like, that may be true. Dude, I spent a whole month studying Shoko Asahara. You think I wouldn't notice that your name is literally Asahara backwards? Come on, bro.
If you couldn't guess by now, all of this is made up. If you go to 1245, you can clearly see he's an admin in the cult's Discord server. The video received major backlash from fans of Osamu Sato, but was otherwise taken at face value by the public at large. It received over 1.6 million views, surpassing his first video about the cult. I should probably mention that even the original video is fake. The entire premise relies on a misconception already debunked by Wikipedia. A common misconception is that the game was produced by the cult as propaganda. The story of Kamakui Shiki Village actually portrays and the sarin gas attack negatively, but Max got away with this, with the story of a YouTuber being threatened by the worst domestic terrorist in Japanese history taken as fact. This was, in many ways, where the crazy all began, with Max disregarding truth for a more sensational story. But as I said before, it went completely unnoticed, with his behavior only rewarded further as time went on. Max took heavy inspiration from other YouTubers, specifically citing Nexpo and Mutahar among his influences.
It was actually Ryan Nexpo who inspired me. It was Ryan and Mutahar who inspired me to make a video about Kanye Quest.
They were part of the growing horror sphere on YouTube, which saw immense growth around this time. Max quickly went from a fan to a collaborator, appearing in Nexpo's video about Kanye West in November of 2019. They quickly became friends, befriending Nexpo, Muta, and other creators like NightDocs and Nick Crowley. The group collabed frequently and hung out outside of YouTube. They met up in person several times throughout 2020. There was even a series called Cringe Kitchen where Max, Nexpo, and NightDocs cooked and ate disgusting food together. The most notable collab of this period was Nexpo's Down the Rabbit Hole, which ends with the trio donning Hotline Miami-inspired outfits as Nexpo delivers a Mama Max-esque monologue.
I want you to know this. You will no longer affect me. You will no longer affect my friends, and you will no longer affect anyone that interacts with me. You've absolutely decimated an already shit year with your constant antics. But you know what? The bright side here is that you've lit a fire under my ass to do the job that you've been consistently failing at. So thank you for opening my eyes. We'll take it from here.
The video amassed 5.9 million views, putting Max in front of both his audience and millions of new viewers. Max began 2020 with 300,000 subs, and ended it with over 600,000. He was near unrecognizable from the creator he was before. As more videos came out under this new persona, his voice got lower and more artificial. Max would later claim this was his actual voice. And that's your real voice, right? This is the real Mama Max
This
voice.
is my real voice, yes.
Is it like a falsetto? How do you do that voice?
So I'll it's so horrible
terrible. I had to get vocal surgery because of it, because I had cysts on my vocal cords because I kept doing it.
Really?
I would cough all day.
Oh my god.
And then the next morning, my voice would be deep AF.
But that's all without mentioning the last and final pivot he'd make in his career. It was after Rolypoly.exe that Max veered from video games in favor of a far more serious subject matter: online creeps. This was the true source of his growth, and what would ultimately lead to his downfall. On March 27th, 2020, Max uploaded cartoon_incorporated.mp4. It centers around a supposed YouTube channel by the same name. Cartoon Incorporated uploaded videos disguised as sequels to children's movies and TV shows. This was to lure in kids and expose them to subliminal messages. The comments were a hub for creeps, which is the main focus of his video. Max engages with them to try and find any actionable information, even getting one of them on a voice call. The video garnered 2.7 million views with a glowingly positive reception. Many were interested in seeing the channel for themselves, but conveniently, every trace of Cartoon Incorporated was erased from the internet.
Fortunately, and unfortunately, YouTube erased every trace of Cartoon Incorporated, as my team and I had mass reported them immediately after we saw the transgressions taking place. It's troubling because I didn't think to archive the entire collection of their uploads until it was too late.
No archives of the videos were ever found other than a single excerpt shown by Max. It was apparently from a video titled Frozen 3 and contained messages like, "You will open your legs for us."
If we take a look at the content, you'll occasionally notice a subliminal message hidden here and there. I'm gonna freeze these frames and manipulate the lighting so you can clearly see them. Your brain will do as we command. You are safe with us. You are precious to us. You will take off your clothes. You will take photos of yourself. We love you.
The legitimacy of Cartoon Incorporated was first called into question by the lost media community, who concluded that it never actually existed. This was echoed in several different subreddits, with many pointing out how similarly it was edited to Max's own videos. To date, no one has been able to find any evidence that Cartoon Incorporated ever existed, but this largely occurred in the background, going once again unnoticed. In the meantime, Max began receiving tips from viewers on where to hunt for gooners. It was one of these emails that led to his next video about kidschat.net.
A survivor of child abuse reached out to me. They say there's a site crawling with predators. You and I are gonna find them, pry them, and them.
To his credit, there have been many independent reports of harmful material and interactions on that site. I mean, with a site called kidschat.net, that's not really surprising. Max's video was uploaded on June 5th, 2020, and was responded to by the admin a day later. It's a pretty abhorrent response, but they raise a few points against his video. Max claims that kidschat blocked his IP in order to prevent his investigation.
Anyway, they blocked my IP. Trying to hide from us, I guess. We'll get back to them on that.
The admin asserts Max was using a proxy or VPN to conceal his identity, which is not allowed on the site. This disputes the idea that he was being specifically targeted for trying to stop creeps. They also start calling him Money Max, which is pretty funny. But to be clear, Max was in the right here and pointed out real issues in their moderation on a site advertised for children.
I get an email back from the administrator himself, Arkham@childrenschat.net.
Where are the 10 screenshots of this activity? Something could be done if people send proof in the form of screenshots.
Are you fucking kidding me? So that means they've gotten reports before and have done nothing about them. Because they actually aren't monitoring the chat logs. And that must also mean the users who are reporting predators really are children. Too young and uneducated to know how to do so.
7 days after it was uploaded, Max's video was taken down for harassment and cyberbullying. I recently made a documentary exposing creeps and a PDF ring currently on the internet. Actual reports to the FBI and the NCMEC have been made because of it, which can be provided upon request. PDF files flagged the video and got it removed. My appeal was denied. The next day, Mudahar uploaded a video calling for it to be reinstated. He pointed out the severity of the situation and went through the admin's responses.
Let's give this clown a new name. We will call him Money Max for
Muda took a pretty nuanced stance in regards to the takedown. He acknowledged the simulated violence and personal info likely violated TOS and understood why it would be taken down.
So now to finish this video off, I definitely don't agree with Max's video being taken down, but after watching the whole video for myself, I can see why. YouTube has an issue with vague terms. I definitely understand that with the harassment cyberbullying. They don't really discuss why they removed the video. But if you look at it, right, his video definitely has like skits that involve sort of violence in them, like extreme violence, and I can definitely see how that can be portrayed as harassment, cyberbullying under these new guidelines. So when they took his video down, I guess they had a fucking point.
A few days later, Nexpo uploaded his own video in support of Mama Max. It begins with Max reading out his tweet from earlier, which serves as the intro to his own expose.
On the 5th of June 2020, one of my good friends, Mama Max, would upload a video exposing predators found on a website aimed at children. After going down the rabbit hole, it appeared that the site's remaining time online was numbered, as Max was reporting his findings to authorities. His video began to gain steam, but before it could get large enough for widespread internet and media attention,
just click.
he was silenced.
Nexpo found himself swarmed with creeps after being on the site for only 10 minutes.
The system that you have in place is, by all accounts, understaffed, unsecure, and lacks the user-friendliness to really address the primary issue at hand. Predators are able to exploit your site's weak points, and as we've seen, being in that chat room for not even 10 minutes made me a potential target for them. If these changes are not addressed, then I can predict an FBI investigation in the near future. Don't pretend like there isn't a problem. Don't pretend like this doesn't happen there every single day. Don't pretend like your website's perfect, because your website is not even good. You have a lot of work to do, and there will be a lot of eyes on you.
The original kidschat.net video was never reinstated, with Max forced to re-upload it entirely on June 19th, 2020. Thankfully, that didn't have much impact on his reach, receiving over 2.3 million views. The ordeal would end up benefiting Max in the long run, with the exposure doing wonders for his public image. To have two massive YouTubers not only defending him, but explicitly calling him a friend, lended him a ton of credibility.
Today's video is sponsored by Friendship. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to save 15%, I'm kidding with you. Friendship for my homie Mama Max. Now, if you don't know, I'm close friends with a lot of the horror guys on YouTube, Nexpo, Night Docs, you know, Mama Max, all these people. They're great people, good friends, close friends to me, personal close friends, people that I have met in real life, good people, people that I've chugged good old pints with. These are close friends to me. And when one of them gets treated dirty, your boy's gonna stand up for him, because that's what friendship is all about.
This was perhaps when Max got a taste for his ability to rally the YouTube community. With the public at his side, he started work on his next investigation. Max's next video was published on September 11th, 2020, hunting PDF files on a children's dating app. The video centers around MyLol, which markets itself as the #1 teen dating website in the world. This video once again seems legitimate, highlighting issues with the site's moderation while catfishing PDF files. It even resulted in the MyLol app being removed from Google's Play Store. With that said, Max was unrelenting in this format, and ultimately the video was taken down once again for bullying. Max doxed multiple potential perpetrators, including showing an actual phone number on screen. He also showed a gun put into his mouth, which raised similar issues as his last video. It really isn't surprising the video was taken down. This resulted in him creating a follow-up video titled, "I found a website that protects creeps," then "Answer Us YouTube," and later, YouTube.com. The video lambasts YouTube for taking down their video, implying they support Jeffrey Epstein and recognize being a creep as a sexuality.
So now that you consider pedophilia as a recognized sexual preference, I guess we can expect Pedosexual Celebration Month from YouTube sometime soon. If only you could see the things I have.
Max uses his most recent takedown to highlight similar issues faced by Anxiety War, another creep hunter. This all builds up to a first call to action in which his viewers tag YouTube CEO, at the time, Susan Wojcicki, as well as massive current events channels like Philip DeFranco and Moist Critical.
All I ask is for you to tweet to Team YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, H3H3, Philip DeFranco, Moist Critical, Scarce, Keemstar, Markiplier, or whoever your preferred voice to get through to YouTube is, with the message.
He called for them to use the hashtag AnswerUsPedoTube, a play on Answer Us YouTube, which trended earlier in the month. Everyone can agree that YouTube's automated system and the way they've applied their policies hasn't always been fair. Having to deal with false flags is a near universal experience on the platform, but Max started to develop a real vendetta, unable to remain rational about the subject. Max acted like it was a personal attack against his content, and thus a defense of creeps. It was effective and gave a new spin to the pre-existing outrage. The hashtag immediately began trending, quickly spreading across social media. The public was already primed against YouTube, so only a few creators gave any pushback. One of the YouTubers that did was Tommy C, who became one of Max's most vocal critics. Tommy assumed Max to be in good faith at the time, and respectfully offered a few criticisms with Nicholas Diorio.
I don't know if this is the right way to do it.
Problem with like the layout. Like, here's the deal: I wouldn't make a fucking pedophile expose like this. I also wouldn't make a pedophile expose at all. I mean, I watched Instagram Wake Up. That didn't go so well.
It didn't go so well.
Wake Up,
and
that didn't go so well either.
And Mama Max is already assuming that they're protecting pedophiles. The evidence isn't in yet. We don't know if they are or not. We don't know if this is a glitch. We've seen entire channels taken down, and YouTube's apologized for it and put them back up. Because they said it was a glitch. What is the most common? Reposting other people's content. You know, they find.
Here's the problem: when you're talking about pedophile rings and all this shit, you have to use words like CP, child pornography. You have to use words like sexual assault, sexual violence. I was 15. All of these things
might
trip the algorithm.
There was good reason to be cautious, as in the past, campaigns like this could lead to overcorrection. The most notable example was YouTube Wake Up, a campaign started in 2019 by Matt's What It Is. Matt accused YouTube of facilitating and monetizing the exploitation of children. It was a call to action, with an emphasis placed on their advertisers. This was controversial, as it really doesn't take much to incite an advertiser boycott, which only really punishes creators in the long run. While Max didn't get his video reinstated, the hashtag was a success. Charlie took his campaign seriously and brought Max's concerns to the CEO of YouTube.
This also comes into play with Mama Max's video, if you remember that controversy that happened, where Mama Max had this huge video that got taken down, and it was taken down because he showed a phone number for like 3 seconds on screen. Well, instead of taking that whole video down, why not just let Mama Max know, take this out and the video stays up? I'm sure he would have obliged using YouTube's editing tools. So I wanted to make sure that they heard that suggestion, and Susan in particular really liked the idea and really wanted to press that on the policy team, and the policy had also liked the idea and wanted to explore ways of slowly implementing this policy over time too.
Max eventually re-uploaded the video with a few edits, receiving another 1.2 million views. Now, the goal of any reputable hunter should ideally be to get these people behind bars. It's important for investigations to be conducted in a way that ensures it can be used by law enforcement. This is a very delicate process, as mistakes can result in the entire case being inadmissible in a court. The most infamous example of this is perhaps Alex Rosen's sting of EDP-445. It was understandably a big question surrounding Max's content and integrity. On March 6, 2021, Max uploaded puppystomp.mp4, diving into zoo sadism and people who abuse animals for profit. The video begins with an update regarding MyLol, praising viewers for the impact of his video. That includes a screenshot of an arrest implied to be related.
Most importantly, parents are now educated and protecting their children properly. And then, as for the predators we exposed, they have either been imprisoned or some may have gotten away.
And I hope they live happily ever after.
And it was all thanks to you. No, I will not take credit for your achievements, because it was you, after all, who laid categorical
sunshine and rainbows
to those
silly goobers.
All I did was nudge things in a particular direction.
Max later claims that 2 or 3 of the targets that were exposed got arrested, but were released on bail. The rest were inconclusive due to alleged failings by law enforcement.
Like 2 or 3 of them got arrested, but out on bail, and then like was inconclusive, so the police. Well, there's a few I got emails about. Can't talk about that, but just know that justice has been served. But not to all of them, of course, because, like I said, police don't give a shit.
The implied arrest is unique in that all of the identifying information is censored. This is very out of character, with names and photos always shown when applicable. None of the people listed in his MyLol video match the description. The only one in Harris County was never charged with a crime or incarcerated. Texas Penal Code 2111 in its entirety does not appear to cover cybercrimes, but instead indecency with the child. Max's vigilantism wouldn't fall under these charges, even if pursued by the police. The montage of articles Max shows is also misleading. He takes credit for educating educating parents about the sites, but many of the web pages shown actually predate his video. These issues were discovered by u/MaximumPlatypus69 in 2023. Until then, Max's credibility was solidified, with many looking to him as a paragon of virtue. But looking back now, it may seem hard to understand how he was ever taken seriously. The edgelord persona and over-dramatization are extremely cringe, but many of his viewers at the time were CSA survivors, who found it helpful as an escapist power fantasy. If you look through his comments, many of them praise Max as a hero, a label that slowly got to his head. In November of 2021, Max uploaded imvu.exe. The video centers around a creep Max found called Pablo Sunny in the 3D avatar chat game IMVU.
And to my nauseating astonishment, I find the agonizing screams of hundreds of my children pleading for justice after their abuse on IMVU. I hear you, and you will go through this alone no more. We will help you.
Max spent months attempting to collect info on him, only gathering a handful of details. He was a half-white, half-Filipino 24-year-old male. He worked as a part-time freelance musician, claimed to have done work commercials, and dreamed of becoming a famous rock star. He claimed to have puberphonia, and that his mother had cerebral palsy. The video ends with Max getting Pablo Sunny into a voice call before revealing pictures of his face. They were only obtained after Max sent a picture of his own butt in tight leggings.
He's smart and knows what kind of information not to give me. I could not get his name, his personal social media, and above all else, I could not get his face. At least until I sent him a picture of my ass. And yes, that is my actual ass. So why don't you go to Patreon and support me sending my ass to pedophiles, ruining their pitiful little lives after my ass makes them horny enough to send me a picture of their face that I then publish to all of you.
The video ends off with the only information being his voice and face. Within 24 hours, Pablo Sunny was identified as a YouTuber named Zach Haddad, known online as HamSun. Zach would end up deleting his entire online presence as the entire Vancouver musical scene imploded. He was publicly ousted as former friends and collaborators reached out to Max.
We f***ing found you, Zach. Within mere minutes of releasing IMVU.executable last year, the progeny embarked on a surgical excursion to hunt you down, plastering your fugly face all across social media and systematically web scraping for every micron of information that exists of your identity.
It's said even more survivors began to speak out, leading him to be exiled, fired, and evicted. Max later explained that Zach fled to Mexico, only to be arrested upon his return to Canada. His location was confirmed by his team, who created a fake article that was actually an IP grabber in disguise.
The rapist that was in the video is currently in police custody. And
was that as a result of your video, or was that prior to the video?
Yes, it was because of the video. Right. I said find him, and then within 24 hours, we found him. And then I started social engineering all of his friends to give me his information, and they did. And then we pegged him. He fled to Mexico. We found where he was in Mexico. He was from Canada. He went back to Canada and was in police custody for a certain amount of time.
Now, there are a lot of issues with this video, but we'll get into those later. That's because this video would end up sparking a completely separate outrage. In the video, Max showed an avatar with a virtual bare ass, which was flagged for violating YouTube's policy on nudity. The appeal was denied immediately, causing Max to tweet out on December 9th, "I'm giving you the opportunity now to resolve this peacefully, Team YouTube. You have 1 week to make the right decision and spare yourself from another situation." They upheld their decision, and the situation escalated into what became Pick a Side YouTube. The video begins with Nexpo explaining exactly what took the video down, showing this time around there was no mystery.
And for what? Because of the bare ass of a virtual character. Is this a joke? Max documenting this formerly unknown behavior in a 90-minute documentary about the horrors of pedophilia and child sexual abuse in IMVU is somehow sexually gratifying to you?
Every single criticism people had for his previous call to action went ignored, instead being intensified tenfold. Max once again pushes the narrative that YouTube is protecting creeps, but not before roping in a ton of other creators, including me. The video begins with a 17-minute section called Octothorns, in which a variety of YouTubers air out their grievances with the platform. It was similar to what he did with Answer Us PedoTube, using legitimate criticism as leverage for his own. He included statements from, but not limited to, Mudahar, Nick Crowley, Barely Sociable, Anxiety War, Blame It on Jorge, and Elvis the Alien. Max's segment begins 20 minutes into the video, and it's kind of insane.
Susan Wojcicki, stop fucking lying to us every time you have to give a statement in response to videos like mine. All these broken promises you've made that never come into fruition. Either do something good for this site once in your fruitless life, or step the fuck down.
He then accuses Philip DeFranco of purposefully ignoring him because he wasn't a big creator. He's much more polite when addressing H3H3, Keemstar, and Scarce, as they helped him in the past. This is a pattern, with the aggression reserved for anyone who didn't give him attention last time.
Remember when you and your team ignored us last time during the whole Answer Us PedoTube thing because you were too busy talking about some stupid drama? I know I'm not as famous as you would like, but how about you do the right thing this time and fucking say something?
Next up is Critical. Max says he looks up to Charlie as he stands up for what's right, but his past video had aged like milk.
Charlie, I look up to you because you're a good man. You stand up for what's right and speak out in defense of all of us smaller than you. But it is my regret to inform you that your video talking with the CEO of YouTube has aged like milk. So I'm gonna kindly ask for your help once again.
Max then calls out Chris Hansen and Shane Dawson, framing the situation as an opportunity for redemption. Both had found themselves in their own controversies, with Max asking Chris to use his connections at YouTube. Shane had been canceled extensively the year prior, making this offer pretty unrealistic, to put it lightly.
Shane Dawson, I know you've done a lot of fucked up shit in the past and you don't really deserve everyone's forgiveness. But since you're one of the biggest creators in our genre, standing up for what's right instead of wasting time on haunted houses would finally make you look good to the public once again. This is your chance to redeem yourself. Don't squander it.
But the final and most unhinged call-out is the one against Corp's husband.
Corpse, I know you have nothing to do with this, but with all of your power, influence, and the favor you owe me, I just couldn't help myself.
Max uses this part of the video to address petty beef from earlier in the year. In the years since his Life Sucks videos, Max and Corpse grew distant. They didn't speak for years, with Corpse exploding in popularity throughout 2020. That changed in March of 2021 after a call-out revealed he said retard in one of Max's old videos.
Being bored out of your mind and violently seething at the fact that you have to live with a retard who has no idea what's going on in your brain or body when they think they know everything.
By then, Corpse had a huge audience of stans who take major offense to this kind of stuff. The call-out received thousands of likes, which led Corpse to throw Max under the bus by saying he didn't write the script. He reached out and asked for the video to be taken down, which Max obliged, only to get ghosted once again. Max calls this a huge favor, pointing out that Corpse was trying to rush him home from the hospital. But again, this is all over saying the word retard, so who cares really?
Remember when you reached out after years of not speaking to me while I was at the hospital tending to my sick girlfriend, and you kept trying to rush me home to do you a huge favor, and then you threw me under the bus for something you did, and at the same time acted like you were taking full responsibility for it.
Max says he was willing to overlook this as he thought Corpse would stay his friend, but he didn't, ignoring his request for a collab. This meant that now, apparently, Corpse owed him a favor.
But I let you do it because I thought you were gonna be my friend like you used to be, and then you stopped talking to me immediately after you were done using me. Yeah, so how about you do me the fucking favor this time and talk about something besides yourself for once? It will give you a good look, I promise.
Max concludes by declaring he will continue even if it means antagonizing every other creator on the platform. This is followed by a shot at Tommy C, showing a clip of his reaction to the previous call to action. He then commands his audience to overwhelm social media with the hashtag #PickAsideYouTube, demanding they choose between Max or pedophiles.
I want you to pace this bitch until the world is nauseous from looking at it. I want you to drown out every trending topic so that even something like Spider-Man looks like a microscopic speck of dust compared to us. And tonight, YouTube will choose. Let die the pedophiles they love, or suffer the little children.
I mean, let's just make this clear right away. That false dichotomy is complete bullshit. The idea that because they took his video down for nudity, they were siding with creeps is idiotic. It only serves to poison the well, implying that if you didn't side with him, you supported actual criminals. The narrative was still on Max's side at this point, but it wasn't nearly as effective as his last. It received 1.5 million views, but was also met with large amounts of criticism, with public opinion showing significant disagreement. Charlie would end up voicing support for Max, while also pointing out the same issues many had with his approach.
I thought Mama Max did a great job in his video until the end, where he turned it into a you're either with us or with the pedophiles type thing. I think it's counterproductive and doesn't really accomplish anything at all. The hashtag, I feel like most people would find that silly and just write it off right away.
This was only heightened when it was discovered that Max had misled some of the YouTubers that agreed to participate. They weren't informed about the true nature of the video until it was published. I spoke about this issue myself with him directly back in 2021.
Well, that's the question. That's my issue, right? Like, you know, we wanted to shit on YouTube. You sent me a message basically being like, you want to shit on YouTube? And it's like, I mean, I want to shit on YouTube. You know, I'm not really mad at you about it. Like, I probably should have inquired more, and I'm not even really mad that my part was in this video because, I don't know, it's whatever. But, you know, it wasn't just shitting on YouTube. You know, it was saying that YouTube inadvertently protects pedophiles and trying to like start a movement on YouTube. I guess, I guess the thing is, like, why even include all of us in the video if we don't have the same issues and they don't even relate? Like, mine had nothing to do with pedophiles, you know?
Right. This is where Tommy C comes back into the forefront, live streaming his reaction to Max's new video. Tommy hadn't seen the video yet, but was already critical due to the hashtag and his previous call to action. That was while showing a tweet on screen from comedian Vito Gesualdi, who replied to Max, "I pick pedophiles."
When you make a presentation in this manner, and a serious issue, you lose credibility.
Max was watching Tommy closely, as within 5 minutes he attempted to join the call, only to be turned down.
Tommy, I just was informed Mama Max is interested in talking, and he's in waiting call right now.
Well, he's gonna have to wait, and I'm going through this nightmare. I'm not willing to debate this right now.
It was even worse than expected, with Tommy making a mockery of the entire narrative.
We don't like pedophiles.
Wow, that's Jesus Christ! What a daring and brave take! How did you come up with that?
Vito joins him midway through, with the two flabbergasted over what they felt was a transparent clout grab.
You know what he's doing right now? Let's just call it what it is. These are fucking scare tactics. No, it's scare tactics. He's trying to force them into it. If you really think about it. Listen, you long-haired Keanu Reeves-looking motherfucker. Why don't you agree with me or be a pedo?
That's why he has the question, children or pedophiles. Like, well, I guess I gotta pick one of the two or else.
Do you know what this makes it look like? This is a clout grab. This is not about kids, and this is probably the best circumstantial evidence out there. This whole thing, this whole video from the top down is a bunch of horse shit. This is a YouTube shit.
But easily the most memorable part is when Tommy finds out he's featured in the video for his initial reservations.
I get in here. Unfucking believable. You know what? You know what that tells me? He didn't send me the fucking DM because he knew I would fucking see right through it. He knew I would see through it. He knew I would expose him, and he figured putting me at the end. This is a threat. This is a fucking threat. Hey, jerk off. Go fuck yourself. You're a fucking liar. You're a piece of shit. You're not a journalist. You don't give a. You're a clout chasing, just another YouTuber. You're no different than anybody else. You don't give a rat's ass, and you can suck my dick. How about this? How about this? How about look at the camera? You know what? You look like a creepy pedophile. I don't know that for a fact, but it looks like you with the blood in your mouth and the fucking deep voice. Maybe you touched a kid or two. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just saying, you sucker. You did that shit to me. I'll do it to you jerk off. That's what it is, wannabe piece of shit. You don't give a shit about kids. I actually have to. You phony, you fraud, you fake.
Night Docs called in after this rant to defend his friend's video. Needless to say, it didn't go very well.
So he definitely has a much more hardline approach or a viewpoint, I think, than I do personally. But I mean, I do support Max.
Silly if you support Max.
Sure.
What are you supporting him on?
So what I think he would rather see is a situation where people who are trying to protect people that can't protect themselves, like children, don't have to fight the YouTube system.
Yeah, but he's really just talking about other YouTubers and his own content.
Right.
He doesn't
But
give
this
any
is
specific examples where kids tried to speak out about their molestation or anything and were shut down by YouTube.
Can't he just re-upload it without that butt shot? Like, didn't they just say we don't like this one little thing? Like, can't he?
And that's a
still
good
put
point.
It up?
And that's a great point. But
Yeah,
the
it's a
problem
great point.
is
It's a
that
point I
YouTube
made to
has-
Max's face a year ago. And then, interesting enough, it took almost fucking 13 months to do the same video over again and do
So,
the
Tom,
same
you brought up a point
stunt.
earlier.
What pedophiles has he caught?
The one that he's referencing that got removed. He caught. I don't know his real name. But
Where did he? Oh, really? Do the police know his real name?
So the problem too is that
nobody. Just say it. Nobody. Exactly.
This controversy ended much like his last, with the video never being reinstated. Max did come out with the win, receiving a YouTube partner manager, but he once again had to re-upload the video. Max appeared on several podcasts to address the controversy in the aftermath, and the emerging criticism was not forgotten by Max, who held a grudge against his detractors. He had a particular disdain for Tommy C, with his resentment materializing in his next video. But there's a few things we should discuss about that video first. On August 5th, 2022, Max uploaded Wayne.exe. This is what happens to a creep on TikTok. The video is about a 60-year-old predator named Wayne Barnett, active on both TikTok and IMVU. Max was able to catfish Wayne, even getting him in a voice call with his webcam on. This is notable because Wayne had already been caught in 2019 and was on probation until 2023. In spite of this, no action was taken after Max had sent his evidence to the authorities. This leads Max to direct his audience to harass the Butler County Sheriff's Office. He even calls out the sheriff by name.
After submitting everything to the police months ago, including evidence we are not allowed to show you, we still have not heard back from them, and Wayne is still active. Let Sheriff Richard Jones know we do not appreciate them. In the event that they do not make an adequate response, there really is no other option, is there, children?
I don't know what this was supposed to achieve, but it was unsuccessful. Wayne is allegedly still active to this day, evident by Max's own subreddit. It should have been easier given that Wayne was already in the system for exchanging with a 12-year-old, but as Max points out, his investigations didn't exactly have a great track record.
With every report I have ever made, there seems to be an overwhelming silence from those we call authorities, and it has all ever amounted to only a few arrests, which does not even guarantee an incarceration. As wise men once said, "F the police."
Nevertheless, this was all overshadowed by the chapters that preceded it. The video begins with an update to Pick a Side YouTube, with much of it directed towards his critics. Max first parodies Tommy C's stream with a segment called Mommy Z.
Hi, you're live on the air.
I pick pedophiles.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I absolutely agree. Thank you so much for calling in.
I am a...
So without further ado, let's get right into the video.
Max then shows excerpts of his reaction before implying that having Vito and Mr. Girl on a show meant he supported PDF files. Bear in mind, Mr. Girl only called into Tommy's show for about 15 minutes. Rather than call Tommy out by name, he does what a non-clout chaser would do and refers to him by his sub count.
What I did not foresee, however, was when you accidentally aligned with actual pedophiles along the way. Please teach me your ways, washed up commentary channel number 46,853. Anyway, I can see a simple conversation is asking for too much when you're busy inviting more pedophiles onto your show.
Now, Max is sure to clarify he wasn't calling Tommy a PDF file, just Vito, apparently.
And that's not me calling you a pedophile number 46853. That's me calling you stupid. I would never threaten you.
But his audience got a different message. It's one thing to accuse a platform of protecting PDF files, it's another to accuse a small streamer in front of your entire creep hunting audience. Tommy was flooded with comments accusing him of being a creep. He responded in a stream calling Max an egomaniac before revealing something he had never talked about. Tommy was in fact a CSA survivor himself and had every right to criticize Max for the way he was making videos.
I'm a victim of child molestation. I was molested by my babysitter, and I got lucky. I had a couple drinks with my neighbor across the street a couple years later when I was a teenager, and he full on got raped by the same guy. Neither of us had the balls, because we were children, to say anything, and by then it was just too late. So I get really, really upset when stuff like this happens. Don't believe me? Think I'm just saying it? Well, Dave knows about it, and he's known about it for like 10 years. And he's one of my closest Army buddies. And if you want to sit there and deny me, which I don't care, and say that I'm making this shit up, why would a guy like me running a comedy show just open him up to some of the most offensive, which I fully expect, jokes that I'm going to get? I don't care. I care more about people not taking you seriously than making fun of me getting molested as a kid.
Max had basically re-victimized Tommy by subjecting him to the harassment of his fans, who were now baselessly calling a CSA survivor a creep. Max never responded to this publicly beyond a half-hearted attempt to squash the beef on his live stream.
I don't want to hold dirt on anyone. Like, even people like Tommy C, I honestly just wanted to, like, clap back. Because, you call me a pedo on stream. I think I deserve to, slap you a little bit. I don't want to like fight him forever. I mean, I think he's very funny. I don't think he's a bad person. I just think sometimes the way he covers stuff feels like he takes everything at face value and just runs with that. And I would like him to be more thorough, because I think he has a lot of potential, because he is very charismatic and he has an audience who would die for him. And that reminds me a lot of myself.
Oh, and I haven't even mentioned the QR codes yet. Yeah, so Max would hide QR codes throughout the video with messages for Tommy C. In one of them, Max admits to cherry-picking the clips of Vito and Mr. Girl. Don't let this small section of the live stream fool you. I cherry-picked it, but that's not why I'm showing you this, even though it is peculiar why he treats files more friendly than someone who hunts them. The reason I'm showing you this is because hashtag 46853 has a pattern of giving a platform for creeps to defend themselves. In another of them, he says something that will have very strange implications as we progress further into the video. I've said this before publicly many different times. I don't do this for the kids. I do this because I like hurting people. On July 23rd, 2023, a channel by the name of Magnetar released an almost hour-long expose on Max. It served to platform some of Max's ex-girlfriends who had come out against him. The names featured would be more fleshed-out stories from Lucy and Olivia, who had voiced their accusations prior, in addition to a new victim, Haley, Magnetar's girlfriend. Haley is the only one we'll be discussing at length, as her story appears to be the most credible. It's also unique in that she never dated Max, alleging a one-sided obsession that spanned several years. She gives us quite a bit of history on Max, starting all the way back in 2013. They met in high school and were close friends. Haley claims the first red flag came after she mentioned her sister's upcoming birthday party. Max apparently showed up uninvited, with Haley unaware he even knew where she lived. At said party, he wouldn't engage with anyone besides Haley, standing well away from everyone. This led her to cover for him by lying and say she had, in fact, invited him. Haley recalls that Max wanted to become a firefighter after school and spoke about it often. It was apparently some kind of code word, which he refused to explain.
After prom, Max started texting me more than usual. He kept saying he wanted to be a firefighter and that his calling was to be a firefighter. And of course, I would ask him why he wanted to go into this profession, but Max would deflect and not tell me directly. He also said that firefighter was a code word for something else. I asked him several times over the next, few months what it meant, but he would just laugh at me and change the subject.
In August of 2014, Haley got her driver's license and suggested he stop by after work. He took her up on this and they drove around town. Eventually, she took him to an inlet near a lake where they sat and talked for a bit. Max brought up his dream of becoming a firefighter, which led Haley to ask about it again. But this time, he simply handed her a notebook. Haley opened it at home and found, allegedly, a violent plan to get rid of her actual boyfriend.
Most of the notes were similar to diary entries, like what happened that day, things like that. And then he started describing, our friendship, like him and I. He talked about how I lit up his day, how he looked forward to seeing me and all of those things. He then brought up Dustin, who was, again, my boyfriend, and how he didn't deserve to have me. He had written out a whole plan on how he would get him out of the picture. I don't fully remember the exact details and don't want to speculate how he would have done it from memory, but I remember it being thorough and violent, and it freaked me out so much that I just threw the book down.
She tried to distance herself, which should have been easy as she began attending university, but Max was persistent in her DMs, with Haley claiming she went along with it so as not to set him off. This led him to show up at her dorm room, an hour-long drive, despite never telling him exactly where she was staying.
One night he showed up to my dorm room. I hadn't told him which dorm I was staying staying in, so it was strange. He found out where I was. When I asked him how he knew where I was, he laughed and never told me.
Haley broke up with her boyfriend Dustin that September and spoke about it to Max. This led him to try and reconnect further, which she was advised against by her current boyfriend Anthony, also known as Magnetar. Anthony told her to ignore him and cut off all contact. She refused, figuring she owed it to Max to let him off easy. Then one day, Max claimed to have arranged a meeting for her with her sister. It was for networking purposes as they were in the same line of work. Haley agreed, and Max calls her to tell her they booked a hotel room. He drives her to the hotel, where she finds out the meeting was a ruse, and he actually booked the room for the two of them. This is where she alleges Max trapped her, disallowing her from leaving and dismissing any excuses she threw at him.
He was standing like in the doorway and wouldn't let me walk past him. Anytime I tried to get out the door, he would hold my shoulders or my waist and he would just stop me. Honestly, I can't remember all of what happened that night, as I've done all I could to forget and move past this memory for years, but I do know that I was scared and that I was held against my will for hours. I remember being on my period and asking if we could go to the store so I could get tampons, seeing this as a way to get out of the room, but Max said no. I ended up sleeping without a tampon or a pad that night because he wouldn't let me leave. I remember telling him that I was talking to a new guy and that we had plans to watch a movie that night. Max said that I was lying about the movie date and continued talking about his mom and his sister. I eventually was crying so hard that I just fell asleep. I woke up to Max's hand in my shirt. He was like rubbing my back all the way down to where my shorts were, and his fingers were inside of my shorts. I rolled over and asked him what he was doing. He just kind of smiled, super creepy, and said that he was watching me sleep.
Max says she was finally allowed to leave in order to attend her chemistry class. After this, she didn't respond to any calls, texts, or emails for several weeks. He kept asking if she was okay, how her day was, but she didn't respond. Then, in December of 2014, she noticed his car parked outside her workplace. Haley called Anthony to pick her up, to which he told Max to leave them alone. This made Max so upset that he apparently started accusing him of taking her away from him. There was another instance where he showed up on campus, only to learn she was on winter break, followed by a couple of months where he actually left her alone. This is around when Max joined the military, doing basic training in Arizona. Max returned in March of 2015, sending vague and ominous messages.
Max didn't reach out to me for a month or so after this. He said he was in the military and doing basic training in Arizona. I told him that he should focus on that, and he didn't respond, so I figured that would be the last I'd ever hear from him because I was pretty blunt about it. He started messaging me again in March of 2015 with really vague and ominous messages like, be safe, don't believe what they say. Anthony was also getting messages such as, keep her safe and you don't realize who you have, but we just ignored them and assumed Max was like on his shit again.
Then, Max sent Anthony a message early one morning with a link to a video of him harming himself with the message, "Thanks, Anthony." The video was also posted to Anthony's Facebook where he tagged himself. Anthony called for a wellness check on him, which ultimately led him to be discharged from the US Army. Obviously, Max would survive this attempt, and he and Haley would never reconnect. That was despite his best efforts, trying to worm his way back into her life over the next 4 years. He even wrote a lengthy apology attempting to explain himself, admitting to a lot in the process. That includes admitting it was one-sided, as he was upset he never had the chance to be with her. Haley's accusations are easily the most convincing, with evidence for the others very lacking in comparison. I mean, that's without getting into all the different issues present in their individual testimonies. Regardless, the stories were all presented together, with the response being quite mixed. Obviously, this would warrant a response, with Max releasing Believe All Abusers on July 29th, 2022. As far as debunking videos go, this one is actually quite good. Max starts off by showing his exes were conspiring to tear him down, being in the same group chat to orchestrate it. He talks about every single one of his accusers, providing different pieces of proof to show they're lying. With Paulina, he shows a litany of proof in text messages and screenshots showing a different side of the story. They show her trying to manipulate him by hurting herself. He also points out her obsessiveness, contrasting her own statements to show her story is basically one giant contradiction.
Here's Paulina's blood on her plane ticket to me after not seeing me for a while and telling me not to call the police. Here's Paulina threatening suicide. Here's Paulina threatening suicide. Here's Paulina threatening suicide. Here's Paulina threatening suicide. As you can see, I have been nothing but kind and sweet to her. And Paulina has continued and 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 continued to harass me my friends, my team, and my family. And anytime we try to defend ourselves, she says that we are the ones harassing her. So, as you can see, I was not the abuser in our relationship. She was.
With Olivia's story, he doesn't even really bother debunking it with proof. The full 30-minute call from before she joined the group chat was put in the description.
I broke up with you literally because you were boring, to say the least. We never hung out. We never did anything. We never saw each other. Even though we lived together, we never did anything. I was bored as shit.
Why all the weird accusations, though?
Because I'm so tired of seeing these freaking 13-year-olds making fan edits. My ex-boyfriend, who made me go fucking crazy because he was great.
So you're being spiteful.
I'm being mad.
He brings up another ex of his, Sarah, who hadn't come out against him, although she was planning to at the time. He alleges she molested and abused him, showing a worrisome text message and an image of a bite mark as proof. Lucy was his first girlfriend, having met on Twitter back in 2016. With Lucy, he shows proof the way she presented her accusations was deceptive at best. For example, she claims that he groomed her when they met 2 months before she turned 18. He also shows proof she lied about her age at the time. While these other two cases did warrant being talked about, by far the most interesting part is the section about Haley. As noted, Haley's was the most convincing, not least of all because she provided quite a bit of proof. Max in fact confirms certain parts of the story, although he heavily pushes against a lot of the accusations.
Haley is not one of my exes. Haley has never abused me. Haley is a young woman that I fell for in high school and that I obsessed over during my time in the military. This is when I was 18. I made decisions that I obviously regret.
One of the key things he does is try to prove that he and Haley were a lot closer than ever implied. He confirms he was utterly obsessed with her, but suggests the reason for that is because she was effectively leading him on, as they would often do things that only couples tend to do, like cuddling, foot massages, flirting, etc.
True, you did not reciprocate them when your boyfriend was being nice to you, but when he wasn't being so nice to you, you would come to me for love and attention because that's all I gave you. We would talk on Skype almost every single night. You would invite me to come over to stargaze and talk in front of your grandma's house. We would go to the mall together and I would buy you things. We slept in the same bed together multiple times. We would cuddle. We would tickle each other. I would give you foot massages. We kissed each other on the cheek on rare occasions, and there was even one time you let me draw on your body with markers. But that's just my side.
He confirms the existence of the notebook, but claims the violent rhetoric had a very different context. Max says it was actually about someone he believed was abusive towards her.
Now, I don't know if you're purposefully lying or just misremembering this, so I made a promise to her that I would kill the man who she claimed had been abusing her during our friendship. I will not go into detail to respect her privacy, but the notebook was a gift. It was filled with raps I made about us two torturing and killing him. She said I was a psycho, but she liked that about me, and this is me performing one of the songs in that notebook a few years later.
Here to fix and solving all the issues by dissolving you.
I never released the song out of fear she was going to call the cops on me, which is something she would do.
According to Max, his code word, Fireman, was actually his rap pseudonym, with all of the violent writing in the notebook being lyrics against her alleged abuser, not her boyfriend. He tells us Haley never tried to distance herself from him at this point, and would in fact indirectly encourage this behavior by saying she liked the fact he was a psycho. When we fast forward to her in college, he claims they'd been in contact, and she actually had told him where her dorm room was. We fast forward again to the day Haley claimed he trapped her at a hotel. He explains she had known beforehand his sister couldn't make it, and she knew they'd be at the hotel room alone. Haley agreed to it as long as he didn't try to F her. The visit was far more amiable, with the two of them cuddling, tickling each other, and doing all of the sweet things that, you know, a couple would do. They would also have a lengthy discussion about how she could try to get him fired from the military before he was shipped out to boot camp, which he was very eager to do, and they would meet to discuss this a few times afterwards. After he shipped out, Max claims they would continue regular correspondence, although the only proof he shows is a picture of him holding up his pinky to show he was making a pinky promise, as he says. At this point, Max tells us he hadn't actually been aware at all that Haley was dating Anthony, as whenever they hung out, she would claim they were just friends. He would eventually find out in boot camp, which is when he attempted to take his own life. However, his version of events once again differs, as he shows a supposed text from Anthony threatening Max to stay away from them in the aftermath of that video. In fact, he tells us the person who had saved his life was actually one of his army buddies. He also shows a supposed police report filed by Anthony and Haley. Since Max doesn't show much evidence of many of his and Haley's interactions, he decides to call in his sister as a sort of character witness, testifying that he and Haley were in fact incredibly close and casting more doubt on some of Haley's claims. As the conclusion rolls around, Max takes aim at what he considers his last unofficial accuser, Magnetar himself, taking time to make a rather egregious claim of his own. That's also while revealing his full name to the public.
Anthony Field, Haley's boyfriend, Magnetar on YouTube, the one who published this video on me.
The proof he shows is the testimony of a supposed victim who claims Anthony sent her nudes when she was underage. We also get testimony from Max's sister who affirms this anonymous account.
He graduated high school and he was an adult. He sent his genitals to a high schooler who was around 14 years old or 15 years old.
It should be noted that we don't actually get any tangible evidence. In spite of this, Max is very confident in calling this man a creep, leaking his full name in the process. The video was overall received very well, amassing nearly 1 million views. It was good enough for people to not only dismiss the accusations, but levy the ones against Anthony. That included several massive YouTubers who trusted Max as both a friend and a credible hunter.
And then he showed a clip of his sister saying that the guy that's that organized the video was sending like dick pics to 15-year-olds.
Me and my girlfriend were following the whole thing like crazy because it was like, because me and my girlfriend were like, we know Max, so it's like, we just want to know this whole fucking thing. And me and her were blown away by the bombshell. We're like, what the fuck? Like, how can this? It's like, you gotta imagine, like, if you're the guy running these things and you have a possible history.
I mean, to be honest, looking at it from his perspective, Max is this guy who obviously has a chip on his shoulder and hates this dude, right? And he's making videos about catching pedophiles. He's just scared that one of the videos will be about him. So he's trying to discredit Max first.
We'll touch base with this later on because it would take a while for this video to be scrutinized at all. This is for the most part how the public left off the scandal back in 2022. Anthony gets destroyed and Max is still in a position of power. With the constant takedowns and apprehension to censorship, it shouldn't be surprising his income came largely outside of YouTube.
Max doesn't even try to monetize his videos anymore.
Max had a fan base of very loyal supporters, a massive number of whom signed up on his Patreon. This is where he would upload uncensored cuts of his videos, as well as other exclusive benefits. While it's a bit iffy to calculate his exact earnings at the time, given he hid both the number of patrons and the amount he was making, we can assume through third-party websites that he had well over 3,000 patrons at his peak. This was at an average of around $6 per patron. Of course, to maintain that loyalty, you would have to actually produce the content they were paying for. For a while, the only video he uploaded after Believe All Abusers was a song called Pray. It's pretty embarrassing, with the lyrics about how he wants creeps to perform oral on him.
You're the prey, and we're the pred. Now you're the prey, and we're the pred.
Behind the scenes, Max hyped this up by adding creators to a group chat claiming he was about to cause a stir. But other than that, he was mostly inactive until the summer of 2023. On June 6, 2023, Max uploaded How This Little Girl Makes $150 billion every year. It was received poorly by fans, with many concluding it was just an advertisement for his Patreon. This was while asking for help reaching 10,000 patrons despite making little to no content.
If you want to see the full trailer, then you'll have to go to Patreon, or find it somewhere else on the internet. But in the meantime, please enjoy this censored version.
Those who did watch the uncensored versions were disturbed. Max's rather tasteless recreations were present throughout his catalog. In Wayne.exe, he even shows himself rescuing a victim from her captor in a Hotline Miami cosplay. But the new video contained scenes depicting CSA using an actor and an actress. The choice was controversial, inciting backlash among his patrons. One user, named A Mushroom, began arguing with Max, stating they couldn't support him in good conscience. Max doubled down, stating he didn't care about feelings, and asked for proof it was harmful. The back and forth continued, with Max forced to address it in a Patreon-only livestream. The cracks were beginning to show, but for now, people gave him the benefit of the doubt. Interestingly, one of the uncensored versions was titled You Can't Hurt Me Trailer. It was uploaded to Vimeo on an account called Striker Films. You see, Max began using the alias Max Striker, even changing his legal name to Max Salvatorio Striker. Salvatorio is an Italian name that means savior. He wrote in his petition, "I believe changing my name will allow me to be more successful, as it is the image I'm striving searching for rather than the image I've been living with. Also, I just don't find the names Ronald or Harris very interesting. On October 22nd, Mama Max approached a number of online personalities regarding his next investigation. The video was about a dangerous predator Max intended to expose to the masses. His messages were bizarre, with vague threats implying they could be creeps. He invited them to watch his video ahead of time under the condition they signed a non-disclosure agreement. Tell your friends that this video serves as my response to those who spread disinformation for profit. It will also stand as a cautionary statement for any of you involved in illegal or unethical behavior targeting minors. I would invite you to use your platform responsibly. Disseminating this video could be an opportunity for you to contribute positively. Max seemed quite upset by the fact that he was, in his own mind, blown off by all of these creators. So much so that he would actually make it a focal point of his eventual expose. On October 27th, he released a video titled "Brainwash Your Favorite Influencers, Trigger Warning." The main purpose of this video was supposedly to tell the story of Shelby Spencer Slayton and her accusations against a man named Camden Gerard Davis.
On March 18th, 2016, Spencer, a 16-year-old girl from Wiley, Texas, mysteriously disappeared, lured by the illusion of joining a supernatural family as a vampire on some random corner of the internet. She actually found herself ensnared in a dangerous sex cult led by a child predator posing as a werewolf god.
He was apparently accused of kidnapping, assault, and attempted human trafficking.
The man had recruited hundreds of young children, subjecting them to sending CP, kidnapping, assault, and attempted trafficking. Almost 7 years later, Spencer and the other survivors shared their stories with me. This video serves as their scream for action against their perpetrator.
The rather glaring problem is that Max doesn't actually do much to expose the accused. Even though the video is supposed to be about victims of a cult, only 2 minutes of it actually explain their situation. No evidence is presented at all beyond the missing poster. Max spends more time comparing influencers to cult leaders and proposing bizarre hypotheticals.
Two extraterrestrial factions of the same primitive species are at war with each other. They are both guilty for spilling the blood of children. Based on the pattern among this species, who will win the war?
It primarily serves as a call to action to get the video in front of popular faces. Max once again calls out specific creators and invites them to talk about the topic. This list would include PewDiePie, Lex Friedman, Mr. Beast,
Joe Rogan,
Philip DeFranco, Ethan and Hila, Anthony Fantano, and of course, Corpse Husband. Each individual is given a personalized plea, like appealing to PewDiePie's newfound fatherhood. Max requests to be on Lex Friedman's podcast, and I guess Joe Rogan as well.
Joseph Rogan.
He thanks Philip DeFranco for his coverage of Pick Aside YouTube. The message to Fantano is about how the song playing is a banger. The corpse section is a generic plea ignoring the stunt Max pulled a year ago. And after that, there's a rather off-kilter section of Spencer addressing Camden's mother, revealing her full name to the public. The video ends with a claim that Spencer is seeking legal action against Camden, as well as a call-out for all of his other supposed victims to come forward. He encourages viewers to use the hashtag #WeAreReal. Max then states all proceeds of the video will go to the victims, either to fund their legal battle or simply to help them in general. He also teases episode 1 of the You Can't Hurt Me podcast featuring Spencer. The video only netted about 100,000 views, a stark drop from his previous content. It received a mix of criticism and confusion, with most unable to follow what was even going on. This wasn't helped by the disclaimer stating it was fictionalized to some degree. The underperformance could also be blamed on the fact he rebranded his entire channel. Max renamed his channel to God Cult, with many fans assuming he was hacked. He wasn't, with the rebrand accompanied by this manifesto ranting about AI, geopolitical conflict, and global warming. His Patreon indicates GODS stands for Guard Our Daughters and Sons. The description offers a bit more insight, implying he made the trailer without Spencer's permission. Dear Spencer, I was hesitant when you approached me to document your story. By nature, I'm an autistic experimental filmmaker. Are you kidding me, bro? Yeah, me too, actually, me too. I'm mad autistic, dude. I'm an autistic experimental filmmaker with a propensity for igniting movements that many deem controversial. I'm not a journalist by any stretch, but you believed in my ability to do justice to your narrative. As I listened more, I found my own traumatic past reflecting yours in some of the most heart-wrenching ways. To that end, you'll find a few surprises that we can discuss after you watch it. I hope I did not let you down. Your friend, Max. The comments were filled with valid criticism, causing them to be turned off entirely. The next day, the aforementioned podcast was posted to a channel owned by Spencer. It's a 5-hour interview in which Max asks Spencer about the cult at length. Now, just a heads up, I'm not going to talk much about those accusations today, but I do have a separate video about the cult on the the way, which will investigate the allegations against Camden Gerard Davis in depth. The biggest takeaway most had is that, once again, there were no receipts. While most believed her story, the interview doesn't provide actionable evidence. In fact, it may have hurt the cause, as part of her testimony includes admitting to several crimes.
There was one time he did have me lure a girl, like, physically. We got an Uber and went and picked this girl up from like 30 minutes away from us, and she was like 13 or 14, and he kept trying to convince her to have sex with him.
There is one specific story I should bring up for reasons that'll become obvious later. The podcast isn't just Spencer's testimony, but 4 other survivors who provided written statements to be read out loud. The only other accuser without a pseudonym was Michaela Staton, referred to as Kai and Kayla. In her retelling, Spencer claims she left the cult after Camden allegedly SA'd Michaela behind a church.
Was there a specific moment that led to your decision to escape?
Kayla getting sexually assaulted by him, like literally in a ditch outside of a church.
Michaela reported this to the authorities, apparently providing photo evidence and a threatening conversation she had with him. In fact, she even claims Michaela had gotten pregnant, and when she'd told that to a detective, he outright ghosted her. Eventually, Michaela would allegedly have a miscarriage. The video offered a harrowing and far more complete picture of how severe these allegations were. But they were just that, allegations, and you need a lot more to call someone an evil cult leader. And most people simply didn't have the time or ability to piece together the story from a 5-hour podcast with no proof. It didn't get the attention Max desired, as the next day he went live with Spencer reacting to the video.
Influencers, even if they're not destructive, being inactive to injustice, I feel, is in of itself harmful. People don't care until it affects them. And I know this is shitty, but if they don't cover it, I'm going to make it affect them.
On November 11th, Max released This Is What Happened to Mama Max. The video starts with Max addressing the overall change in his content. He explains his journey from the early days of his channel back in 2016. Eventually, his productions turned more serious when he found his calling making predator hunting content. That's when Max gives a rather startling admission. He reveals that every single hunt video, while fundamentally based in reality, took place in a larger fictional universe where such behavior is normalized.
The Mama Max universe was a cautionary tale that takes place in a dystopian future where child predators have seized global power, exploiting the digital landscape to entrench their rule. Rising from the ashes of a society that failed to protect its most vulnerable, the children emerged, a covert network of vigilantes inspired by the style of Hotline Miami. Once victims, they are now hunters of the monsters who hurt children.
Amusingly, he describes this as too obtuse for YouTube, complaining it led to a steep drop in viewership. He even goes on to say the YouTube audience may not be ready for this kind of content. On that note, he also defends himself from accusations of clout chasing by saying that if he really wanted to get views, he'd picked a terrible grift for YouTube. He does not bring up his Patreon numbers, mind you, which, while diminished at this point, was still netting him up to $9 grand a month. He then responds to comments that call him either a grifter or point out he wasn't treating the situation seriously enough. For example, this is his response to a user accusing him of using the topic as window dressing to boost his relevancy.
Comparing crucial issues like child abuse, human trafficking, and pedophilia as window dressing for YouTube relevancy says far more about you than you realize. Your choice to overlook these details and instead diminish this work is a telling revelation of your own character.
For the most part, this is the general stance he takes throughout the video, using the seriousness of the topic as a shield from any and all criticism. He defends the overt flashiness by saying it was the only way he thought it could get some attention. He argues that doing things the regular way, by showing all the facts, simply wasn't enough. It necessitated cult-like tactics to get people to connect with the message. This is also how he justifies calling out specific YouTubers. Max argues that if they had any sort of moral backbone, they would push his video unconditionally. He shames all the YouTubers he reached out to in private, albeit with the courtesy to not name anyone in particular. But that was very short-lived, as Max became agitated behind the scenes.
Max, have you personally reached out to any YouTubers about this? Yes, I have reached out to multiple. They are all apprehensive. I don't want to say I don't blame them. I think the YouTubers I reached out to should be covering the story regardless, because it could make a huge impact and potentially save children's lives. And I've made that clear with them, but they are apprehensive. My current solution is make the follow-up video and discuss it further in a way that's more accessible. Talk to Charlie. Deadmau5, I did talk to Charlie. I will still be talking to him.
This can be seen in his DMs to Charlie, which he leaked in his next video. The first shown is dated October 23rd. It seems Charlie turned turned him down, stating he was moving away from React content. Max acknowledges this before adding him to a group chat. There is absolutely no expectation for you to react or cover the video. Max bothers him for several days, begging him to review the video. The brainwashing vid is released on October 27th. Then on November 6th, Max tags everyone, stating the video didn't meet expectations and they didn't make enough to start a full legal suit. I've sent the survivors my own income to hopefully make up for this. Max also sends Charlie a DM asking for a 15-minute call. Before long, he was shaming them for their silence to get them to attend his meetings.
Hello, my name is Max Stryker. I'm a filmmaker dedicated to empowering children. You are invited to a mass call between many high-profile YouTubers and the survivors of a destructive sex cult that has victimized hundreds of children.
The idea Max didn't expect them to cover the story was a lie, evident by a DM he sent to Nicholas Diorio around the same time. Your response, or lack thereof, will not go unnoticed. We are determined to be heard, and we hope to count you among those who stand for what is right. Max was gearing up for his next big stunt, which came just 4 days after his last. It was on November 25th, 2023 that Max uploaded, "This is the cancellation of all time, Penguin Zero, #WeAreReal." In addition to the title, the thumbnail put Charlie front and center. The video begins with Max helpfully explaining it was clickbait for another call to action. He follows this with a brief segment mocking the outrage surrounding Sniper Wolf and juxtaposing it against what he deems a far more serious issue. While Max claims it isn't a call-out, he does levy several criticisms against Charlie. Footage of his channel plays in the background while Max rants about the apathy of creators. There's even a section where he shows all of their DMs before looking down solemnly as the survivors flash on screen. This is all preceded by a quote stating his silence would lead to the triumph of evil.
The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
Following this montage, Max addresses Charlie directly while claiming he's not trying to corner him. This is largely what he spends the last 10 minutes discussing, once again distracting from what he supposedly cared about.
Charlie, I hold on to the hope that you'll act in accordance with the integrity and goodness I've always known you to possess. I realize that centering this part of the video around you might feel imposing, and for that I extend my sincere apologies. To offer a gesture of goodwill, here are my dogs, hoping it brings a moment of joy amidst these heavy topics.
Max finally provides evidence in this video, but they're spliced in between the borderline seizure-inducing edits and flash on screen for only a second. They're also completely without context. The montage includes a picture of Spencer and Camden together, as well as some seemingly innocuous posts. They do very little to further our understanding of the case, but hey, at least it's something, I guess. He also plays a video with the survivors, including both Spencer and Michaela.
My name is Spencer, and I am a survivor of Camden Gerard Davis, the leader of a destructive cult that has victimized hundreds of minors. This video is our screen for action.
The video drags on for a while, adding really nothing worth of substance to the overall investigation. Pretty much the universal impression from creators and viewers alike was that it was just another call for attention. In the end, this video was received the worst, with an overwhelmingly negative comment section. Everyone from CSA victims to supposed lawyers came out of the woodwork to criticize him, pointing out the over-reliance on flowery prose and the obvious attempt at emotionally blackmailing Charlie. This continues even into the description where he admits to using ChatGPT-4 and cult psychology. Whatever goodwill he had from over the years was quickly evaporating, as even his own fans were skeptical. I mean, we're a whole 3 videos in with over 50 minutes of content, and Max had still done absolutely nothing to explain the whole story or provide actionable proof. The video inevitably reached Charlie, who was asked on stream to address the situation. He was not impressed, calling the move slimy and giving a brief explanation of why he stopped replying in the first place.
We talked like a month ago about like what he was working on in his investigation, and then apparently when I had COVID, he messaged me a couple times and I never saw it, and now he's taken that as me ghosting him and ignoring his very important mission, and it really rubs me the wrong way. He's jumping to the most extreme possible explanation for me not seeing it, which is really fucking cringe. I had COVID, and I barely used Discord in the first place. It was a miracle I ever even saw his message to begin with, and then I spent 12 days not doing anything online in bed, and during that time apparently it changed his whole framing of the video in order to make it like a Trojan Trojan horse of cancel critical because he didn't respond to my messages.
After getting backlash over the title and thumbnail, Max renamed it Reacting to the Reactions of SS Sniper Wolf's Actions. But even though the criticism was getting harsher, he once again doubled down on his method of investigation. On the 26th, Max fired up a live stream titled Fight Me to argue with his chat and the comment section. Most of the criticism centered around his targeting of Charlie, as well as his dismissal of the Sniper Wolf drama. Bear in mind, she had just doxed and went to the house of another YouTuber. He angrily clarifies that while this was in fact important, in comparison to trafficking around the world, it should hardly be a blip on the radar.
And people are still bringing it to, oh, but drama. Oh, but Charlie harassment. Oh, but Sniper Wolf, let's defend the Sniper Wolf mass coverage. How about we take it to human trafficking and global child exploitation, guys? How's that sound?
This is largely what the stream boils down to, without much in the way of substance. Max continues to insist on the importance of his mission, while dismissing any idea he wasn't going about it correctly. He went live again a few days later, this time with Spencer. On this stream, there was a little more of a dialogue going on, with people coming in and out to voice their criticism. He speaks to a YouTuber named Lyrix, who grills him on trying to guilt-trip Charlie into speaking out. Max defends himself by claiming it wasn't his intent, and that he only singled him out because he likes him.
I think you're trying to force him in a sense, or try to like use this moral superiority, the guilt, like to guilt trip him into covering it at this point.
At least I have your eyes though.
Lyrix also mocks aspects of Spencer's story to her face, like the fact that she sincerely believed Camden's supernatural image.
Wait, so what did he convince you to be?
He convinced me that I was a vampire, and then later on, after he quote-unquote broke up with me, I was a hybrid of a werewolf and a vampire.
Oh, a hybrid. Okay. You know, I saw your video. You put on a pretty convincing performance, you know, with those like fake teeth and everything. Like he had me sold. I probably would have got groomed too. He could have got me if he would have just like his eyes on the little boys, you know.
While he doesn't provide good answers, Max is at least pretty amicable. He has a chat with Mutahar, and in fairness, seems receptive to his criticism.
When you present a case well, when you tell them exactly the beginning, middle, and a potential end of a story, then they have to be actionable. I mean, they're very compelled to be actionable. More so than they were if your story is a little haphazard in the beginning, right? That's the only real criticism I have to offer.
I appreciate the feedback, man. So actually, the whole reason why I made the group chat was because I needed this feedback. I needed to know what direction to go with this because it is such a huge case and I'm already too close to it. Like I already know like all the details. I don't know what other people need to know and I just assumed everyone would go to the podcast.
This stream is also when we learn about a few concerning details about his plan. He reveals that he's contractually obligated to see the whole case through, but doesn't explain what that means. He also says he's in charge of making sure Spencer is financially taken care of and housed, which resulted in her moving in with him.
Why we're doing donations through my Patreon rather than a GoFundMe, that is because I'm contractually obligated to see this case through and make sure Spencer is taken care of. Spencer is moving over to me in a couple of days actually, and we're gonna find her own place, and I will be paying for all of it.
This would raise a lot of questions later down the line, but for now, it's just something to keep in mind. The final point worth mentioning is when Max invites a person named Spider. Spider brings up something that frankly should have been brought up long before the case got to this point, which is the statute of limitations. When Spider asks what the statute of limitations is on cases like this, both Spencer and Max admit they don't know the answer.
I don't personally know the statutes. Max, do you have an idea?
The statute of limitations, I personally don't care. I think Camden deserves to be behind bars no matter what.
I mean, this is a huge red flag considering we'd later learn he'd been in contact with the victims for 2.5 years, and it only gets more ridiculous from there. Max accuses Camden of preying on hundreds of kids before asserting that some of those cases should be within the statute of limitations. He consults ChatGPT for an answer, which only becomes more funny when Spider shows actual legal documents that detail the laws.
I don't think the statute of limitation, let me ask ChatGPT actually. Let's get this cool guy involved.
I have like an article about this. There's one for 2018 and there's one for 2023, but the laws, at least the statute of limitation laws for both articles have not changed.
If you could send me that information, or did you already send it to me?
It's rather odd this didn't get more attention, with the comments being a lot nicer to him than before. The live chat is also fairly warm to Max, largely composed of fans supportive of him and Spencer. However, even though the stream was not too badly received, the exact same complaint that had been plaguing Max since the beginning would come to cause trouble. It was still way too vague, with very little in the way of specific details being given, information and nothing in the way of actual proof about Camden's cult. While this first stream didn't go down too badly, things very quickly got worse. Max did a second stream about the topic a day later, titled "A New Survivor Speaks Out." As the title suggests, the stream starts off with an introduction to Michaela in her first proper public appearance. During this, Max and Spencer would jointly ask questions of her. Michaela explains that she went to school with Camden and met him when she was somewhere between 14 and 15. They began dating near the end of the school year, which is allegedly when he began assaulting her.
He would frequently force me to do sexual things with him that I didn't really want to do, but I didn't feel like I could tell him no, you know, because we were together at the time. And I didn't realize that until like much later. There were a few things he did that, yeah, was probably sexual assault, but being a kid and being, you know, what I thought was in love, I didn't ever say anything.
Michaela claims he went on to threaten her and her family, which forced her to escape to Kansas to interrupt a pregnancy. This stream is important because it confirms Michaela filed a police report and did a rape kit.
Especially with the fact that there was an actual rape kit with Kai's, like, there was solid evidence, and they just completely ghosted her, the detectives.
Unfortunately, just like before, no actual evidence is provided whatsoever, leaving us with yet another unconfirmed story. Max justifies the withholding of evidence by stating it was necessary for the legal case against Camden. He also states he was waiting for this speculative, nebulous, hundreds of victims to contact him.
There were hundreds of minors that we are trying to bring together, which was the point of reaching out to Charlie, to reminder to everyone.
Just like last time, Max took time to invite random people on stream and talk to them. It's during one of these chats that we find out Max had been working on this case for 2.5 years. Spencer claims to have contacted him after filing a report to the authorities. They had yet to file another report since then, with Spencer arguing it was unrealistic without more survivors.
When's the last time that any of this has been brought to any authorities like the FBI or police?
Probably about 3 years ago.
How long have you guys been sort of talking to Mama Max?
For like 2.5 years.
Well, now that you guys are sort of getting a case together, don't you think it'd be a better idea to, before the video, to give it to the authorities again, now that you're like all together and you can sort of go as a collective to the police?
I mean, we could have done that, but at the same time, with the track record that we've already seen, it just didn't really seem realistic without having more of us survivors to do this.
Things become more questionable and Max makes it seem like they're pursuing a lawsuit against both Camden and the authorities.
I don't want to wait for the bureaucracy of law enforcement to take their time when it's already been 7 years with multiple reports. Like, that's ridiculous. And that's also why we're taking them to court as well, because this is absurd.
There are no real details given on how he actually plans to approach it, mind you. He does, however, promise to release a video detailing the full timeline of events, helped by Spencer, even going as far as to say it's his #1 priority. Besides this, we also find out that the entire legal fund for the victim was being handled directly by Spencer.
Where's the donations going towards? Not that I doubt it won't be going to a good cause for survivors. It's going to the legal case. Spencer's handling all the money. I am sending it to her. She is the financial manager of the legal case.
By now, the number of people actually taking this seriously continued to dip lower. While the chat was supportive, the comments after were largely negative. This only worsened as people began to scrutinize Michaela's story, finding contradictions between the two versions presented. I mentioned before that Michaela's testimony was first read out as part of Spencer's podcast. While you can fill in some details without contradicting anything, Spencer claimed it was a miscarriage, while Michaela says it was deliberate.
When she messaged the detective and was like, hey, he got me pregnant, the detectives never responded ever again. And she ended up miscarrying, so she didn't have that baby, and honestly, I think that she believes that that was for the best.
He kept threatening me and threatening to kill my family, so I up and moved to Kansas, where I met somebody and they helped me get an abortion for that.
Without going into what this means for the actual story being told, this is one of the best examples of just how poorly conceived Max's way of doing things really was. It's sort of expected that if you're live streaming, you're gonna mess up and misspeak. This is fine when the stakes are low, but when the point is to deliver potentially damning testimony, you better make sure everything lines up, especially when your testimony is the only thing we can go off of. Needless to say, putting trauma victims in front of a mic on a live broadcast is not a good way to do that. This oversight was enough for Max to break out of his stupor, at least slightly. He pinned a comment under one of the videos promising to address some of the complaints. By then, his own subreddit was turning on him, questioning why Max would even bother instead of focusing on the timeline and actually getting a video out that proved that this cult even existed. So up until this point, there's something I've neglected to mention. Michaela Michaela is a single mother. If you'll recall, Max claimed all of the proceeds from his Patreon and the 3 videos would go to the victims. In spite of this, on November 19th, Michaela made a troubling post on Facebook begging for $20. This was so she could afford baby wipes, diapers, and eggs for her child. This opened up a lot of questions about how that money was being distributed. I mean, Max went out of his way to give Spencer money and a place to stay. We also know that Spencer herself was now in charge of the money, which suggests she was responsible for distributing it to the other victims. So for one of the key victims to be left financially destitute is not exactly a good look, no matter how you slice it. Then, a few days later, another bombshell dropped. Michaela's original police report was obtained and released on Kiwi Farms. It contradicted her on-stream account completely. It was filed in May of 2017 when she was 18 years old. There was a rape kit, but police concluded there was no physical evidence to support the suspect was at the house the night of the incident. Now, to be clear, it does align closer with her account from the podcast, but there are still major discrepancies, such as 2 other alleged assaults going completely unmentioned. They are supposed to have occurred outside of a church in December of 2016.
In December of 2016, a week after my birthday, and then again on Christmas Eve, I met him in a church parking lot in the middle of the night under the pretenses of he wanted to talk about some things that were going on within the group. Both times he ended up raping me in that church parking lot.
With no real evidence provided to police, the investigation was suspended on July 13th, 2017. There was now verifiable proof that at least some of what Max presented was just outright false. This report was picked up by a streamer named Chud Logic, who was actually one of the first to make content criticizing Max's investigation. At this point, pretty much nothing Max released could be taken seriously without proof. This led a lot of people to start viewing his prior catalog with a critical lens. They were re-examining his previous attempts at hunting, looking for any discrepancies. The result was a now rather infamous Reddit post by Maximum Platypus 69 on December 17th. This guy goes in depth about how he believes that 3 of Max's most popular videos had actually been faked. In Cartoon Incorporated, he noticed the supposed Frozen 3 video uses a distinct font called Pixter Granular. Pixter Granular is a unique font type that appears in Max's later videos. It's not available by default in Windows or Adobe, which meant it had to be searched for and purchased. While not exactly bulletproof, the coincidence is rather interesting. He also points out the supposed arrest from his My Lol video. I already covered these discrepancies earlier, but the third and most damning in this section is about imvu.exe. This is a story I left out earlier because it's genuinely fucking insane. In the video, Max discovers an account named Casey, whose only friend is Pablo Sunny. Max uses this to infer she was exploited by him. Max then claims to have reverse image searched her Naruto profile picture to find a YouTube channel. This YouTube channel has unlisted videos, which he somehow gained access to. He then discovers a video titled, "This is where you raped and killed me," depicting a bloody white sheet in the woods. Many interpreted this as meaning she had either died or unalived herself. This led to an extremely awkward moment in a Discord Q&A where he claims Casey is actually alive.
Is there an update on Casey? Can you talk about how you got into the account or how you found it?
I can't talk too much about Casey. I don't know what I can and can't say. I will tell you that, yes, she's okay. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, thank God. I didn't even know that. Holy shit. That's something I wanted to actually jump in VC with you about at some point. Thank God.
I'm gonna stop talking about it. There's a lot I want to say about it, but I can't fucking talk about it.
Yeah, we'll respect her privacy too. We'll respect the secrets for now. Thank you, Max, for that very relieving update, because those are fucking haunting part of the video, I tell you.
To date, there is no real evidence that Casey ever actually existed. This post heightened the tension felt within Max's community, with much of his audience feeling betrayed. Even though it wasn't definitive, there really shouldn't be this many questions. It led people to actively question if there was any truth in his current case. I mean, that's what happens when you so heavily fictionize your predator hunting videos. If all of that wasn't bad enough, it was about to get a whole lot worse. The following is a clip many overlooked from the You Can't Hurt Me podcast.
The FBI never responded. That's interesting. I literally got a card on my front fence from the FBI. They didn't even bother contacting you.
No.
For context, Max often referenced paste bins in the description of his videos. It was where he'd store evidence and other material from his investigation. The files were hosted on the file sharing site called Mega. It was through this that a user discovered his Mega account had been closed. Not only that, but the notice claimed it had been reported to the authorities for objectionable content. This folder or file was reported to contain objectionable content, such as CSA, violent extremism, or bestiality. The link creator's account has been closed and their full details, including IP addresses, has has been provided to the authorities. Now, the first response that comes to mind is that it simply contained proof of people being creeps. But from everything I've seen, that doesn't really make sense. Mega uses a similar method as a lot of sites in detecting illegal content. Basically, illegal stuff is stored in hashes to avoid retaining the original. This allows them to identify material by checking against a database of known hashes. This isn't to say a false positive isn't possible, but it's very rare. Mega, in particular, is quite limited in its appeals, with very few accounts ever being reinstated.
The appeals are very interesting. When an account gets hit, they can appeal. But the appeals are so limited that I'm not joking, in certain quarters, they have literally allowed 0 appeals to go through. In fact, their highest appeals were 10 appeals. And this is obviously thousands of accounts being taken down. Very, very few accounts ever get reinstated, which I have mentioned is most likely because of a possible false positive.
This suggests that Max's account may have possibly, allegedly, according to some people's subjective opinions, had this kind of content uploaded on his profile. Without making any unsubstantiated claims, this was further proof Max was not cut out for this sort of investigation. In light of all this, Max broke his promise and went live again on January 5th, 2024, which will go down as perhaps his greatest mistake throughout this entire investigation. The stream's main focus was, presumably, to try and quell some of the heat Max had been receiving. He once again invited people on to talk about the case with the likes of Mutahar, Larix, and Xylee. Before we get to that though, Max starts addressing the Mega controversy. He speculates it was flagged due to the videos of my LOL predators pleasuring themselves to him being in that folder.
It was all of the evidence we got from our pedo hunts, specifically I think it was my LOL, since there were so many predators and so much stuff we documented. We put it in the Mega Drive links. This included like videos of them beating off to me saying I'm a 14-year-old. I assume Mega just saw it and was like, okay, this is child exploitation material. Let's forward it to the police, which means it served its intended purpose.
Max and Spencer then claimed to have found where Camden lives, filing a police report with local authorities. If you're wondering whether something has changed since the time when they claimed they were only doing a civil suit, trust me, this'll get weirder. For now though, we get introduced to yet another supposed survivor of Camden's escapades, codenamed Survivor A, with the name given to us being Ishmael. She recounts her experiences with the cult when she was 13 years old at length and in detail. The most relevant thing here, as usual, is that no actual proof is given to us, and the statement is completely off the cuff. The same issues emerged with yet another survivor, for whom we are given the name Eli. Eventually, after hours of questions and testimony, Max started inviting guests.
As you can tell, I'm very autistic. I just want to let you guys know that if I slip up and say the R word, I have the pass. So just so we're all clear on that.
All right.
The first one to come on is Larix, who became a very outspoken critic. The conversation starts off with Larix talking about their first conversation and how Max sent his viewers to spam Camden's mom and brother. Not only was it scummy, but it didn't even make sense, as Spencer admitted they were both unaware and no longer lived with him. Max responds by arguing that, while he can understand how being blown up like that may be annoying, it is nonetheless something his family should be notified of. The topic then shifts to a discussion about Max's own personal drama regarding his accusers and Haley's boyfriend. Larix points out that he accused Magnetar of being a PDF file based on very flimsy evidence. The only evidence was anonymous, unverified messages from a supposed victim. They're shown in his video, but end with the person admitting they no longer had the alleged conversation. Rather tellingly, Max acknowledges this, but continues to insist that Anthony is a PDF file.
He is a pedophile.
Okay.
He is verifiably a pedophile.
Okay, I'm curious, because I just talked to Magnetar on my stream just like an hour ago, and he told me that he didn't know what you were talking about at all. I don't even know what happened. I'm just curious, because I haven't seen evidence on both sides. So do you have any evidence proving he's a pedophile? Because you didn't show it in your video.
What do you want? His dick pic?
No. What? I want evidence proving he's a pedophile.
I think his behaviors prove that he is a pedophile.
What is his behavior? That's what I'm asking you.
I mean, Spencer talked on stream a little bit about what she saw. We all went to the same high school. I'll let her speak about that if she wants to. From what the person he sent his pic to when she was 15 said, I mean, she verified Anthony Field sent her pic when she was like 14 or 15.
How did she verify?
It's in the video.
Well, I mean, you just like scroll through a whole bunch of DMs, playing devil's advocate, fake those DMs, and I'm talking to Magnetar, and he says those DMs are fake.
Oh, okay.
The other evidence is testimony from Max's own sister and Spencer. Yes, if this couldn't get any more convenient, Spencer is now also here to back him up with her own story.
I actually went to the same fucking high school, and he was graduated, over 18, and sneaking into the school wearing polo shirts because we had uniforms so that he could eat lunch with freshman girls. And I saw that multiple times when I myself was a freshman.
I don't think I need to explain to you the implication this has for his entire channel. It really highlights just how unprofessional Max really is, not to mention hypocritical. He's perfectly willing to give massive leeway to his accusers when he's not the one being accused. Max also claims on numerous occasions that revealing Magnetar's full name isn't doxing, as it isn't personally identifiable information. Somehow he believes this, I guess. He then tries to Google this, only to have the first result contradict him. The reason I'm mentioning this now is because it'll become really funny later on. This is when we learn Max's plan for the legal fund has completely changed. Apparently, he spoke to a lawyer who advised them not to pursue a civil suit. He also changes his story to imply police were involved in some capacity since the beginning.
To everyone who keeps saying you can't sue someone into prison, we know that. We spoke to a lawyer. They recommended that we don't even pursue a civil suit, so we will be using the money to bring everyone to Georgia to report Camden to his district attorney. Just so that's clear, because we do want him behind bars.
Is the police involved now with this Camden Gerard Davis case?
I mean, they've been involved from the beginning. Well, involved is an exaggeration, but we are involving them now, yes.
Larix is then unceremoniously kicked out after he asks about Max's ex, Olivia, with Max painting it as an effort to protect her privacy. Whether there's any truth to that is anyone's guess, though to his credit, the original video was now unlisted. But things get even more interesting when Max invites Muda on stream. It was already apparent that Muda was following the situation, but as Larix tried to give his closing statements, Max name drops him to lend himself credibility.
We have evidence in a Discord server. You can ask Mudahar if he's seen some of the evidence.
This basically forced Mudahar to elaborate on his thoughts publicly. Muda brings up the same complaints he had before, calling out Max for providing little to no proof. He confirms he saw some of the proof, but was not allowed to talk about it due to an NDA. This is while implying, as best he could, the evidence wasn't all there yet.
I know that you feel you have the evidence and you feel like you know what you're doing is the right thing. But the thing about it is, like, if you want people to take this as seriously as you guys are taking it, you need to start providing that evidence to the public and provide like an actual story, you know? Like, I've seen the evidence that you posted, and obviously there's an NDA signed, so I can't publicly discuss this with anyone. But I can say, obviously, it, like, you know, it contains one side of the events, and obviously, you know, my thing on screenshots is that unless I refresh something from a server myself, I never usually believe it or jump on the gun. Okay, this is what we talked about though, like a month ago. It's like, if we're gonna make a PSA and we're gonna talk about it, we need to make sure the story. I'm not saying 100% bulletproof. I don't live in that world, right? Like, obviously, you can't have 100% evidence of something, but I'm saying very, like, very ironclad almost, as close as you can fucking get, right?
Perplexingly, Max tells us that the reason he's not shown any proof so far is because his lawyer had advised him it would hurt the investigation.
You don't think we should protect that first to see if the police are going to do anything?
I mean, what you have right now, is it going to be something that, like, what is it? Is the evidence, do you believe, is going to be invalidated the moment you release it out in the public, like a message or something?
Correct. Is that not the case?
I mean, your lawyer should be the one discussing it. What did your lawyer say?
I mean, they said first thing we should do is all go to Georgia and make an accounting, but that's going to take a little bit of time just because we have to get all of the survivors on board and a date and time to do it.
I would say sit down with your lawyer again, because I've never heard any lawyer that would say that to me.
But of all the guests during the podcast, it's the one at the tail end of the stream that's the most gruesome. Xylee has been an ardent critic of Max's conduct throughout the entire case pretty much since the beginning. Amusingly, as soon as she comes on, Max leaves to use the bathroom, saying he'd rather wait for her to go off before coming back. Once that fails, they get to have a rather heated discussion where Xylee reiterates many of the same criticisms we've been over many times before. It's pretty cathartic as Max just sits there helplessly, completely unable to respond.
What are you trying to say, Xylee?
What I'm trying to say is, if they have a case, again, I haven't seen the proof, so I'm saying if, okay? If they have a case, you are fucking it up by these live streams.
I don't think that's true.
No, I think it is, because let me tell you something. You sent your audience to go hunting for this dude and his mother. If something would have happened to them, that would have been on your ass. And then it would have been on their ass for saying the damn name and having these people in the chat hunting his ass down like he's a fucking deer. They can pull these live streams for court. You do know that, right?
We are not going to court, Xylee.
So what are you doing? Just hunting them down like a deer? Is that what we're doing? So you do plan to go to the police, right?
Of course.
What's the point past that? Because then you're talking court. So then if you go to police and they say, okay, yay, we're going to go get him or whatever, I don't know, live in a dreamland, whatever you want to feel. Are you going to court after that?
I'm unsure about the entire process. I think that's the job of the district attorney, but the survivors would likely appear as witnesses.
What bothers me is your answer right there. You've been doing this for 5 years and you don't know how the process goes?
I've never been to court.
Oh, well then that makes sense then. There you go, folks. You're a vigilante for views only. Bro, are you serious?
He's toast, he's owned, he's destroyed, he's pwned, he's
game overed.
We also get full confirmation that a civil case is no longer being pursued at all. This is because their lawyer plainly told them there would be no point as Camden doesn't have substantial enough assets. Yeah, I know, it took him this long to figure that out. Like, Max is genuinely just retarded. As interesting as these discussions are, there's one detail I've neglected to mention that turns this whole case on its head. In response to his chat calling Spencer living with Max exploitative, they reveal that they've actually known each other since they were kids.
Oh, it's so exploitative that I moved in with a friend. Oh, boo-hoo. What?
Spencer has known my family her whole life. She was in the same kindergarten class as my sister.
Yeah.
I don't think y'all understand, like, the relationship here.
Like, my aunt literally knows his mom.
Yeah, like, we were friends before we were, like, actually on a case.
To clarify, that means that Spencer, the one at the center of this whole controversy, whom Max had chosen as the representative of all of Camden's victims, whom Max had decided to shelter and support financially, and to whom he gave the responsibility of handling these finances, is actually someone who's been close to Max years and even decades before this case ever came to light. By all accounts, this would make Max completely ineligible to handle a case like this in the first place, which, given how poorly it's gone since then, is perhaps no surprise. The stream would end on a rather sour note, with the last thing Max says on stream being this.
Thank you all for joining the stream and participating in this conversation. We'll see you probably never again.
This would end up being rather prophetic, as the massive 8-hour VOD was promptly deleted. Of all the streams, this one contains the most evidence of Max's clear unprofessionalism, which no one paying any attention could really deny. This is the last piece of content that Max would produce regarding this saga, at least insofar as trying to detail the case. And I do dare say it will stay the last. As for the reasons we're yet to get into, it's unlikely he'll ever actually stay true to his promise of delivering that timeline video. The next day, Larix tweeted out a series of DMs sent by Max after their debate. It starts off with a legitimate concern. Larix apparently leaked one of the survivors' names by mistake. Max asked for the VOD's removal before threatening to involve his YouTube partner manager. Yes, the same one he got from Pick a Side YouTube. Larix complied but clarified it'd be re-uploaded with her name censored. This led Max to heavily imply he'd have Larix's channel terminated for bullying. If you don't want to get striked, I must express my concerns regarding the patterns we've observed in your behavior and the nature of the community you are cultivating. Your channel is at risk of being terminated if these issues persist. Max issued his own statement on Patreon, reiterating the stream was removed for privacy concerns. He announced he would be taking a break until everything was handled legally. Backlash against Max was hitting a fever pitch as viewers and creators alike dropped him. Max started bleeding subscribers right when this fiasco began, and by January, he'd lost over 11,000 subs. Channels, big and small, came out aggressively, with the criticism only mounting against him. Even Mudahar, who tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, could no longer explain his actions away. Muda distanced himself from Max and reached out to another creator who became essential to this drama moving forward. Nicholas Diorio began covering the story in a 2-part livestream. The first took place before the disastrous 8-hour VOD and was much more charitable. The second took place after, with Nick calling his downfall an unforgivable failure. Muda called in to explain his disillusionment while trying to reconcile his own responsibility.
Did I call him a pedophile?
Well, he seems to think you did. I don't know for a matter of fact that that's the case. My question is, do you look at what was said in that video the same way, knowing that Max is not being being super truthful here.
I mean, yeah, probably not. And if honestly, if I don't remember exactly calling him that, I feel like I should. But if I did, I definitely owe Magnetar an apology. If I did, I 100% apologize.
This was a massive blow to Max's credibility, given it was his proximity to respected creators that got him this far. It wasn't just Muda's name that he invoked to try and build credibility, but Nexpo as well. In a Reddit comment left by Spencer, she name-dropped both of them. Muda is already in the evidence server, and Nexpo will be joining before the new year. That same day, Max began copyright striking archives of his recent streams. He was furious, demanding Nick in private to platform the survivors. Nick refused because, well, his show was called a review and it didn't seem appropriate. The two of them, along with Muda, got into a call off stream on January 11th. This call, which remained private at the time, would destroy Max's career. Muda alluded to this on stream, revealing he'd completely severed ties.
The relationship is already dead, like the bridge is burned. We ended that call on Scream, so that call ended up with yelling between each other. I'll give you one hint from that call. When I asked for legal definitions, he printed out a ChatGPT prompt and gave it to me, and it blew me away because in his words he said ChatGPT can give competent legal advice, and at that point I will say, like, I lost my shit on both Spencer and Max, and that was it, you know?
On January 13th, Nick began tweeting publicly about their videos. They were to be released in conjunction with each other and contained portions of the call. In light of this, Max attempted to once again threaten them in private. He claimed that within the next few years, the case was going to blow up. He warned about being on the wrong side of history and that he was just looking out for them. He claimed these survivors wanted an apology from them before promising it would get very ugly for you and your brand. Hey guys, just wanted to remind you I'll be covering the Camden Gerard Davis case myself, so be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn notifications on.
Or else.
In the meantime, FPS Diesel uploaded a video about Max with a complete retrospective of his past. The script was written by Matt Pitt, who deserves a shout out actually for letting us reference his script and notes in this video, so thank you very much, Matt. Meanwhile, Magnetar opened up about how the accusations ruined his life. His job was flooded with harassment from Max's fans calling him a PDF file. That's without mentioning the numerous posts declaring him to be one publicly using his full name. For unknown reasons, Max quietly relisted all of his videos, including Believe All Abusers. I guess he didn't really care about his ex's privacy that much, huh? At this point, he couldn't do much beyond simply doing what he had promised people to do, so of course he did the exact opposite, releasing a video titled, "I Place Accountability in My Own Hands" on January 16th. Max starts off by telling us about another video he made and chose not to release due to criticisms from people close to him. He follows that with a mournful lament about how sad he is to see the situation devolve so much, telling us how his intention from the start had just been to show stories of these people, and that he finds the fact people have been so critical of him very bothersome. Amid that little rant, he also gives us this this little gem.
And when people do talk to the survivors, they're getting attacked just because they're transgender.
As amusing as this aside is, I think the best way to exemplify just how ridiculous Max has been throughout this whole charade comes slightly later. He talks about the process of how this case got started many years ago. He then explains that when he finally started working with Spencer, his plan was to give as many of the survivors as possible a platform to tell their story. He takes time to lament how that's just not possible because you need evidence to make claims.
Originally, I just wanted to do a podcast where we platform survivors and they tell their story. But you can't just tell your story anymore. Now you need concrete evidence. Now you need to go to law enforcement multiple times. Now you need to consult with lawyers. Like, we can't just listen to survivors when they're screaming for help. And that's why I've been taking all of these creative, experimental approaches to try to bolster their voice.
I don't think anything in this video quite exemplifies how bad of a job he's done as much as him whining about the fact that you need evidence for people to believe someone's committed a crime. Like, yeah, obviously, dude. That's how it works. After this, Max says he wants to start everything over. He assures us there's still a documentary being made, and after playing clips of some testimonies, he reads out a plain text reiterating who Camden is, what this cult is about, and telling us that they're working closely with law enforcement, including a unit specializing in cults and cult behavior. One look at the like and dislike ratio should give you just a good enough idea of how poorly this video went for Max. His fan base, if he can even claim there still is one, has completely turned on him, with not a single positive comment to be seen anywhere underneath this video. And trust me, I scrolled for quite a while. The next day, on January 17th, Nick uploaded his highly anticipated video on Mama Max. The video begins with Nick summarizing many of the revelations up until this point. He points out blatant ethical issues and his general mishandling of the case. He also discusses Max's old content, highlighting the absurdity of things like the Casey story. Most important is his re-examination of the Magnetar case. He rightfully points out the lack of evidence and how Max had every reason to slander him. It was necessary, given just how much damage they'd done to his life. Max even reaffirms part of Haley's story is true, like sending self-harm videos because he was obsessed with her.
There was evidence in the other one too, right?
Yeah,
you did go on her
evidence that
Facebook and
wasn't available
post
either.
the self-harm stuff. You did, like, all those social media messages and stuff like that. That was you, right? Be it not the most important part of the story, clearly, but, like, it's not like they just lied about you.
Oh yes, that was real.
This serves as the foundation for the aforementioned call, which contains quite a few bombshells. The first is a startling admission that his videos are mostly fake.
The IMVU thing, I wasn't... like, it's a film. Like, I am presenting it as if it were to be real, but I didn't think people would take it as that. Like,
But wait, you hunt files. You don't think that people are going to think your videos are real?
That's the thing. So I want everyone, when you watch my video, to assume everything is fake, except, like, when I show a pedo's face and what they're doing, because obviously that's all, and that's why we include like Mega Drive links to show like this is the full evidence, this is all real. Everything else should be considered fake, whether it's real or not. Like if I'm sending viruses to whether that's fake or real, that's on purpose, because I don't want people to know if I'm actually sending viruses to pedos, because that's implicating myself.
The next staggering revelation is that Max had never gotten anyone arrested. That's despite claiming otherwise for years prior. Nick confronts him on this, even having a clip of such on hand.
What is the most substantial outcome of a predator hunt that you've done? What is the final nail in the coffin? You're like, if you had to go tell somebody, oh, what do you do? What does Max Striker do? What's your proudest moment?
Honestly, the hunting pedos isn't my proudest aspect. The thing I'm proud of is inspiring those who are CSA survivors to fight back. That is my goal.
Have you ever gotten someone arrested?
If I have, then I don't know it.
You went on my podcast to tell me that you've got someone arrested and it was because of your video, just to be clear. Would you like to re-answer that question?
I've been emailed stuff like, hey, you got this guy arrested, congratulations.
You went on and you said, this guy was arrested, it was because of me, it was because of my video. And you told me that 2 years ago.
It's kind of egotistical of me to say that it was my video that did it. I don't know that for sure.
So you lied?
So that was what I was told through Instagram posts when I was in contact with his friends.
You didn't remember that until I showed you the clip? You didn't remember that, like, this is your biggest crown achievement, that you got a pedophile arrested?
I didn't remember the details, no. I just remember he fled to Mexico, all the police custody, that was only shit I was told. I couldn't verify any of that.
So you just got on stream and told everybody it was me, I did it, Mama Max, #1.
Yeah, that's not cool. You can let people know I think that.
So you've never actually gotten a pedophile arrested?
Not to my knowledge.
So your content is just making fun of pedophiles online?
I suppose, like I said, my biggest goal is to inspire survivors to fight back. If I can do that, then I feel like I've done an adequate job.
Max's behavior in this call sheds a lot of insight to his character. For example, refusing to accept responsibility for muddying the case, even though he took this role on himself.
Yeah, why are you putting it all on me?
Because it's your case!
The one bringing it. Why are you
Absolutely, I am the first one.
Yeah.
You are the only one! You haven't convinced anyone to come on board yet!
You haven't convinced exactly.
That's
You haven't
because
made
you
any
haven't been listening to them.
That's because you haven't been giving anybody anything to work with!
The next is Max using these survivors as human shields, a tactic he'd used before but was now doing in real time.
Well, I'm asking why you did not directly contact me, but contact us only in public streams.
Let's see, I contacted you November 27th. Max, I've seen your latest video. I've caught up with this whole situation. I have texted you.
What it felt like seeing him on streams?
You went on with Tommy and Lyrics and are sitting there talking to them when you literally haven't spoken to the other survivors.
Hold on, can you put Max on for a second?
I'm right here.
That was snaky as fuck, dude. Oh, I'm coming after you, Mutahar. Stand back, Spencer. Can you tell him what you felt?
Finally, claiming an allegation in and of itself was enough to levy life-ruining accusations.
I addressed him as a cult leader and sexual predator because that's how he has been described by the survivors, and even testimonials themselves serve as evidence in a court of law. So to me, that is all of the evidence I need to say this man is a sexual predator and cult leader.
You see the fallacy in that? Like, imagine if I said, Max, you're a rapist, and Nick was to say, oh, well, that's a statement of fact because Muta made this statement, and that.
You don't have to say Muta made the statement. Say 5 girls said it.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened.
Well,
5 girls said it.
Well,
Yes,
about you.
after they were in a group chat together for 3 months, after changing their allegations.
Wait, I'm sorry.
times.
What group chat are you in? The evidence server with all of the girls?
The video ends with a parody of Max's call to actions, starring many of Max's critics, as well as Keemstar, Shoe Nice, me, and the Foodie Beauty for some reason. Nick's video was followed by Muda's later that day, which contained even more excerpts of the call. It was here that we learned Max didn't even vet all of the evidence against Camden Gerard Davis.
I guess the challenge for me with showing the evidence is I personally have not been walked through the evidence besides Spencer's.
Remember when Max used ChatGPT on stream to try and figure out the statute of limitations? Well, here we get a pretty blunt confirmation that Max doesn't just use it for some quick info, he actively uses it for legal advice.
Oh, not ChatGPT, bro.
Okay, so look at what I just sent you.
Yeah, you sent me a ChatGPT prompt, not a fucking legal definition.
We can argue legal semantics all we
No,
want.
we're not arguing
lawyers.
semantics. We have to look at exact definition, Max.
ChatGPT understands the legal system.
It goes without saying that these videos added even more fuel to the fire. They showed Max's gross mishandling of the case to a much wider audience than it had reached prior. Muda's video amassed nearly 1.7 million views, causing Max to lose 10,000 subs in a single day. Max wasn't going to take this lying down, as within 24 hours he tried to talk the survivors into taking legal action against Mudahar. Muda lives in Canada, which means he was suggesting they waste resources on an international lawsuit, when, keep in mind, Camden Gerard Davis is still out there, not in jail. Spencer was all on board, with the two expressing curious motives. Spencer and I are considering a class action lawsuit against Mudahar for breaching our non-disclosure agreement and citing harassment on live streams, defamation, and causing emotional distress. He's extremely rich, so the lawsuit seeks $1 million in damages to be distributed between all of you. All you would have to do is testify against him, particularly regarding his actions, like not speaking to any of you about the evidence and the impact his behavior has had on you. Spencer has agreed to be the lead plaintiff, and I'll do all of the hard work. Please let us know if you are interested. This could have a huge impact on the case against Camden. The first response in this leaked screenshot says it all. Dude, no. Can this stop? Eli, one of the survivors, reacted to Nick's video on livestream. Eli agreed with his points while giving insight to what things were like behind the scenes. Eli admitted the evidence so far wouldn't hold up in court. She also felt it was unprofessional for Max to move Spencer into his house. She had no idea what Max meant when he says he's contractually obligated to see the case through. There was no unanimity in their opinions, as Max had claimed. In fact, at one point, a survivor asked Max to stop streaming, as the lawyer said to wait. Now, at the end of it all, she felt directionless, stating Max made the victims look like a joke. That same day, Max uploaded a teaser for yet another video, Silence All Survivors. Now, I forgot to mention this, but his preemptive response was accompanied by a GoFundMe on behalf of Spencer. It failed to solicit any donations other than a single contribution by Max himself for 10 grand. Now, I don't really get what the point of his donation was. He could have just walked over to the next room and given it to her himself, but the campaign was flagged down, which is where this new video starts. The video is without substance, though there is a crazy shot where he shows this meme of Nick kneeling on his neck, which is it's superimposed over a very infamous image of a unfortunate altercation involving an African-American male and a member of our Shining Boys in Blue. I don't even know what this, I can't fathom why this is here. For all intents and purposes, his investigation was dead in the water. Still, this wasn't quite the end of his incompetence. With his credibility completely destroyed, his closest allies left one by one. That included his editor Slug, who began leaking a ton of material. This includes an uncut version of his critical call-out, which showed him threatening to cancel Charlie.
But I am being the nicest I could be. I could literally cancel you, Charlie. I could literally cancel you, and I choose not to. It's true, though. It's the truth. I'm the friggin' pedo hunter.
The supposed NDA leaked, which amounted to a Discord message with no legal standing in court. But this paled in comparison to what happened next. If you'll recall, Max had called the victims of Camden to step forward. It turns out there was little to no verification for this, as some random guy was able to easily infiltrate the evidence server. I mean, that alone should say it all. The fact it was so easy for someone to join, jeopardizing the safety of the people he was supposed to protect, is unforgivable. But the user started leaking as much evidence as he could to the public. I'm not going to discuss their contents at length, as I'm saving that for my follow-up video where I try to figure out if there actually was a cult at all that Camden was running. But there are a few leaks worth talking about unrelated to the actual case. First, we learn just how irresponsible both Max and Spencer are in letting this very, very obvious infiltrator in without any sort of background check. The leaker refuses to provide any identifying information, so Max just has him sign the NDA. Next, we get to see some of the reactions to his recent drama. The biggest revelation is that several of the survivors staged an intervention frustration behind the scenes. They regret going public in the first place instead of taking the evidence to the police. Now, with all of the survivors' safety put at risk, Max deleted all of his content related to Camden, save for a few shorts. But it was too little too late, with his malignant narcissism leaving a permanent stain on the public's view of the case. This is where that particular saga ends for now, but it certainly doesn't mark the end of Mama Max's story. You see, Max's true colors were felt a lot more by those who'd considered him a longtime friend. It wasn't just a betrayal, but a full disillusionment, which Muda expressed in a subsequent update.
This is a former friend of mine, and honestly, this is probably one of the most painful things for me to read, because this is somebody that I sat down, had a drink with, had a talk to, gave a heart-to-heart to, and now, within 24 hours, I've basically realized that this person wants to effectively sue me for a large chunk of money, okay? An obscene amount of money. Why? Because to me, all this appears is all I ever was to this man was an extremely rich friend who had enough social media clout for him to piggyback his stupid case off of. This, to me, is quite possibly one of the worst, like, internet betrayals I ever had. And if anything, it's the one thing that has pushed me severely away from everybody on YouTube in the last week or two. I really feel like I have no friends on this platform. And I know that's dramatic of me to say, but reading this kind of stuff is just incredibly painful.
This sentiment was echoed by Nexpo, who shared a statement disavowing Max on Twitter. The situation with him has admittedly been an absolute mess, and I've tried to give him advice on how to navigate through it properly, yet it's gone ignored at every turn. I've since cut ties with Max completely. Someone who I thought I knew and once considered a friend, unfortunately, isn't who I thought he was at all, and it's fucking heartbreaking, but it is what it is. I cannot stand by someone who acts the way he does with handling such a delicate situation without any sense of tact. I'm quite frankly embarrassed I ever stood up for him in the past, and while I can't take that part back, I can at least move forward without any further support. To any of you affected by my friendship with and support of Max in the past, I sincerely apologize. I typically am better than this at vetting who I associate with. However, after this storm, I feel like I've never really known Max at all. It was only the beginning, as Nexpo also began speaking with many of Max's critics directly. It became increasingly clear that his friends weren't very familiar with his actual content. They relied on the image he projected and trusted him because he was their friend.
I don't know anything about Kids Chat. That
Did he mention IMVU?
The what?
IMVU.
That I did not ask him about that because I didn't really catch it until all this shit came out.
Do you remember My Law?
Yes, I think so.
Did he say it was fake?
He hasn't mentioned anything about my law because I haven't asked him about anything about that. Puppy Stomp? No, I actually haven't even really watched that video all the way through.
And then lastly, the Wayne. This is what happened to a child predator on TikTok.
So Wayne, okay, so I have seen that one because he sat me down and made me watch it. I don't know anything about Wayne. I believed him on that one.
There is, at least from my understanding, I personally do believe that he's more malicious than he initially was when I was looking into this case.
What no one realized is just how much Max took advantage of that behind the scenes. As his ex-friends started to question their years of supposed friendship, they started to realize how deep the manipulation went. This led them to scrutinize a previous situation that at this point was completely unknown to the public. It once again concerned baseless, life-ruining allegations, but this time, it wasn't against a random guy. It was against another creator and a mutual friend. They began speaking with Nick Diorio behind the scenes, who came forward with the story on February 3rd, 2024. This was the final nail in the coffin, revealing to the public for the first time what happened to Night Docs. Night Docs, also known as Jim, was once a long-form documentary channel. He was part of horror YouTube, even appearing throughout this video to defend Max, but his uploads slowed in the recent years, with his last made nearly 2 years ago. This, as it turns out, was the direct result of drama behind the scenes. The story goes that a few years ago, Jim and Max began living together. Max was looking to move, so Jim let him stay in his guest bedroom rent-free.
I opened my home to this guy. I let him live not paying a dime in rent. He didn't do any chores. He didn't pay any rent. He really didn't do anything. So like if he's complaining about how one time he fed my kids breakfast or whatever, he owed my kids breakfast, lunch, and dinner every time I had him. And he never once offered to compensate me or do anything in return.
In spite of that, there weren't really any issues during his stay, but once Max left, he began spreading rumors about Jim to their mutual friends. In particular, Max claimed that Jim creeped on women, didn't feed his daughters, and sexted a minor.
His allegations against me range from I'm a neglectful parent to I am a creep, that I'm a pedophile. Essentially, the one that I was most bothered by really was when he was calling me a pedophile. He wasn't saying it publicly. None of the allegations he had against me were said publicly. He was doing it all behind the scenes with the people that I was closest to.
Now, Jim wasn't aware of this for quite some time. The rumors were spread in private instead, behind his back, and only to his closest friends and peers. That included Nexpo, who was told it's only a matter of time until he's canceled. This particular comment was part of a long rant insisting Jim must be cut off. Even though Max didn't have evidence, he was able to bolster this narrative with various stories. They took it at face value because of his unearned credibility. Max was ultimately successful, with Jim's former friends turning on him one by one. Now, there's a key issue with all of this, which is that these conversations happened in person. There isn't much in the way of actual evidence, but Nick was able to obtain an on-the-record statement from Nexpo recounting his side of events.
Regarding Jim, there were two specific stories that Max really harped on when it came to Night Docs, at least whenever we had our little, I guess, falling out. So Max was convinced that Jim was this pedophile creep. And he backed up this claim with, firstly, a story about an inappropriate conversation that he claimed Jim had with a minor. As it turned out, this person was not a minor at all. They had told Jim their age at one point, which I believe was like 25. That's that whole story that Max always referred to back whenever he would call Jim a predator. There was another story that led to more of Max believing Jim to be, I guess, a creep. And it involved one trip to a restaurant that he and Jim had way back when Max was living with Jim. Apparently Jim was, making moves on the waitress and, continuously hitting on her, and he just wouldn't stop. And it made this, I guess, situation, or this dinner that they were at, very tense and awkward. Basically, every single time that I was with Max during the time when we had our, I guess, falling out, I guess you could call it, Max would perpetuate this narrative that Jim was this creep, and he would always refer back to these two stories. And I guess I just never really vetted them because Max kind of planted this idea in my head that, oh my god, we're associated with Jim, we have to cut Jim, we cannot be associated with someone like this, he's a pedophile, he's a creep, he's all of these things, and we can't associate with this guy. In hindsight, it's silly. It's silly to just listen to this, especially with this track record of just throwing out allegations without any evidence. But yeah, that was the, I guess, narrative that Max was running with. I guess I didn't realize that he could have been, embellishing some details. Jim, I know you're watching this. To you, man, I want to say that I'm sorry. I know I've been talking to you privately behind the scenes about all this, but again, I'd like to go on the record here and just say that I'm sorry, man. I should have handled this better, and I should not have listened to what Max was saying.
The second on-the-record recount comes from Mudahar, who learned of the accusations indirectly. He would actually end up confronting Jim, which he recounts within his statement.
In regards to Jim or Night Docs, there were two allegations. One of them, which had come from Max, allegedly, in amongst a friend group, about him not being necessarily the best dad. There were two key things. One of them was him being asleep most days, and then the other was that Max would have to step in and feed his children cereal or whatever else was in the house. This is something that I heard, again, not from Max, but through our internal friend group. And while this one definitely raised some questions about, okay, you gotta be attentive if you're the dad, it wasn't necessarily the most serious thing. However, what was more serious was the allegation where he had allegedly started unzipping himself in front of a minor, exposing himself over a Discord video call. Now, I actually confronted Jim about this one specifically because I wasn't exactly, I needed to know the bottom of this truth, or I need to understand or at least get his side, because obviously I met the person in reality. Me and my wife confronted him, and in this situation, Jim obviously categorically denied that he had done anything, but I didn't have any evidence for or against Jim, and in spite of all that, I still decided to, hold back my connection, not talk as much anymore. We weren't necessarily the most talkative people anyways, but this absolutely sealed the deal. And that's just because I don't really like to interact with somebody that even has that kind of an ick on them or that stain. Because again, I don't know what's true or what isn't. In this situation, I just decided to dial back the friendship that I had. Obviously, considering everything now, I'm more inclined to believe Jim at his word, given the other party. But yeah, those were the two big allegations. Well, at least one of them were the most serious allegations, that being of the minor and him exposing himself over Discord. The other one about him being a father coming into question, I don't think I ever really questioned that. I think obviously when it comes to him and his interaction with kids, again, in comparison to him interacting in a weird way with potentially a minor or any woman on the internet, was something that raised more red flags.
After all this, Nick emphasizes how important it is that Max never made these accusations public. This is a predator hunter who apparently lived with with a predator rent-free for months. Keep in mind, Jim has 2 children of his own that Max was accusing him of neglecting. If Max believed Jim was so dangerous, why did he never involve anyone who could help Jim's children? If Jim was guilty, he protected him throughout the years of silence while claiming to protect the kids. The only people Max made aware of this were their peers, which implies some kind of business motive. Nick rightfully points out there's no way Max could have made this palatable to the general public. His actions do not seem to reflect an actual belief that Jim was guilty. And if he didn't believe Jim was guilty, then it was just another example of weaponizing allegations, this time against a business competitor.
I just lost all of my self-esteem. I just felt like I was like irredeemable. There was something wrong with me that nobody would ever want to be around me, and I had no idea what it was that I did, but I was like, I'm obviously just a piece of shit. I completely fell off. I genuinely ended up hospitalized. I came within hours of doing something very permanent and very stupid. It was the last straw, and essentially on top of a period of about 3 or 4 years of one traumatic incident after another.
But thankfully, if there's any good to come out of Max's mishandling of these various cases, it's that the people he misused his position against finally get to have their say. It should be clear by now that Max is not just incompetent, which is what I thought he was at the start of this video. He's malicious, weaponizing his image as the predator hunter to insulate himself from criticism. It's almost unbelievable how shameless it truly was, using predator hunting as a medium for filmmaking. For years, he fabricated entire storylines while his audience, who were often survivors, believed him and even became patrons. When that wasn't enough, he'd manipulate them to further his own interests with call to action after call to action after call to action. Not only did he use the subject matter as a shield, but he also used his reputation to substantiate the unsubstantiated. His position always changes to whatever is most convenient. It'd be easy to say he had a fall from grace, but truthfully, Max was always this way. There was never a point where he was fit for this role. It was always only a matter of time before he was shown to be a fraud. Unfortunately, it only came after he ruined not only his own credibility, but also the accusers of Camden Gerard Davis. While it's unlikely we'll ever know the full story of the alleged vampire werewolf cult, there does appear to be something there. It can't be understated how much damage Max did, from all the CSA victims he gave a false sense of hope, to all of the people he baselessly accused. It's been a long and exhausting journey up until this point, and yet with all of this, there's still more to discuss. I'll be discussing that in the second part of this video, which is dedicated to the accusations against Camden Gerard Davis, and it will be released in a week or 2 from when I'm dropping this one. But until then, I've been Turkey Tom, thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.